Chapter 175. On the other side of the Forbidden Zone, Han Xiao had arrived at his destination. The air was filled with an unpleasant stench of rot and slight toxins. The plants on the ground were all deformed. The range is a bit big. I don't know the location of the boss Beast King. Han Xiao put down the metal box in his hand and opened it. He quickly put on the modified Viper mech and observed the outside world through the holographic screen. Usually, it was the same as normal vision and could be zoomed in and out at any time. There were also various scanning modules on the screen, giving him a more detailed understanding of his surroundings. There was also a radar on the top left corner of the screen. The small radar could detect life signals within a kilometer in diameter and could reach up to 3 kilometers in power. The scanning and analysis module could analyze the traces on the ground and analyze what creatures had passed by a certain period of time. It could also analyze and record some unknown things and record them into the database. The filter made the rotten air fresh. Han Xiao could hear his own breathing. The thermostat of the mech made him very comfortable and not stuffy at all. He carried firearms and some grenades, which were all fixed to the rails of the mech. Fully armed, they did not affect his movements. Han Xiao moved his arms and legs and familiarized himself with the controls of the mech. With a spring of his legs, he jumped nearly 10 meters and entered the Forbidden Zone. He was now in standby mode. The bonfire reaction furnace recovered more energy than it consumed, so it was always at full power. The radar was always on. As long as there was a strong life signal, it could be the Beast King. Because the Beast King was not fixed every time, Han Xiao was not sure what species it was. After running for 5 minutes, more than 10 life signals appeared. Han Xiao used the password to adjust the zoom in and out of his vision. The scanning mirror in his eyes was enlarged like a sniper scope. The current control mode did not have a neural link, so he needed to use language to control various functions. The smart chip could analyze such simple commands, and Han Xiao also set up voice recognition. It could only recognize his voice and use it as a command. Others could not use it. A few hundred meters away, more than 10 giraffe-like beasts were resting. The ferocious bone spurs on their bodies showed that they were not docile at all. A few of the largest giraffes raised their heads and looked in his direction. They seemed to have discovered him. Stealth mode. The optical camouflage was activated. The surface of the mech became the color of the surrounding environment. It was like a chameleon. At first glance, it was impossible to find anything unusual. The gaps of the mech were sealed, so not a trace of smell leaked out. The giraffes shook their heads, but they didn't find him, so they lay down again. Enemies with high enough levels would be able to see through his concealment, but this group of wild beasts was still far from it. Han Xiao continued to move forward, searching for his target. 2 hours later, he had scanned dozens of mutated animals and plants and recorded them into the database. He also fought a few wild beasts with different signal strengths to enrich the data and determine the approximate level of each signal strength. The highest level wild beasts he had encountered so far were a group of level 42 wolf-like mastiffs. They were not the target he was looking for. The sky darkened. The Forbidden Zone was even more dangerous at night. All kinds of beast howls could be heard from different directions. Without a mech, the night in the Forbidden Zone was indeed very dangerous. However, the night could increase Viper's concealment ability and seal off his own scent and sound. He was like a rock, inconspicuous. I haven't found the target yet. Han Xiao leaned against a huge rock and loaded yellow bullets into the magazine. His field of vision was changed to night vision. The database had recorded the areas he had been to. The possibility of the Beast King entrenched in the center of the Forbidden Zone was higher. That was the ruins of La Perte. The closer he was to the center of the Forbidden Zone, the more likely he would encounter wild beasts. Han Xiao gave a command. The leg armor on his calf suddenly opened up. There was a small space inside which stored some mini spider detectors. Han Xiao activated the spider detectors and had them dispersed to the center. Everything they saw would be reflected in his field of vision. The spider detectors shook their heads and left at a fast speed. After a while, Han Xiao also saw the situation in the center through the spider detector's cameras. He saw many ferocious wild beasts passing by. Suddenly, the image reflected by spider number 1 shook slightly. There was also the sound of violent collisions from afar. He saw that the wild beasts were gathering in a certain direction. Spider number 1 climbed onto the back of a boar and followed them. The image showed two supers being chased by all kinds of wild beasts. One of them was an esper who could release white shockwaves with his hands. The shockwaves were quite powerful, and they repelled the wild beasts that approached them time and time again. However, the sound it made attracted more wild beasts. It was a vicious cycle. There are others in the Forbidden Zone. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. The next moment, he saw a 5-meter-tall, 10-meter-long giant white lion appear. Wherever it passed, the other beasts avoided it in fear. Those that did not avoid it were bitten to death by this giant white lion, crushing a path through the crowd of beasts. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. This was most likely the Beast King. Yang Dian and Ned were running for their lives. They were out of breath, and their lungs were burning. Behind them were hundreds of mutated beasts and a giant white lion whose aura was so terrifying that they couldn't even muster up the will to fight. It's all because of your Esper ability. The sound attracted the wild beasts, Yang Jian said angrily. Ned slapped his palm backward, and a white shockwave spread out, pushing back the approaching beasts again. Hearing that, he said angrily, "Shut up. If it weren't for your carelessness, we could have sneaked past that pack of wolves. Stop talking nonsense. What should we do now?" Yang Dian took out his tablet to browse the map while running. "We are approaching the center of the Forbidden Zone. It's very dangerous. Quickly change directions." The two of them quickly changed directions. The wild beasts were chasing them, and the giant white lion was the closest to them. Ned's shockwaves could only stop it for a moment. It could not even make the white lion retreat. Ned was sweating profusely, and his energy was running out. This time, a broken wall suddenly appeared in front of them. There was a crack at the bottom that was just big enough for a human to roll in. The two of them were overjoyed. "Hide in there." Suddenly, Ned realized that a giant shadow was rapidly expanding under his feet. He turned around in shock. The white lion jumped into the air and slapped down with its giant claws. The wind was so strong that Ned could not even open his eyes. The pressure almost suffocated him. "You go first," Yang Dian yelled. He pushed Ned away and threw a punch at the incoming claw. Thick blue flames wrapped around his arm. He was a martial artist. His body was strong, and he could take more hits than Ned. He thought that it should not be a problem for him to block this attack. The fist and the claw crashed into each other. A series of cracking sounds were heard. Yang Dian's arm was fractured, and a few of his ribs were also broken by the shockwaves. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew dozens of meters away like a small stone. He plowed a hole in the ground, and blood flowed out of his mouth and nose. Ned hurriedly pulled him into the crack. The claw that followed dug into the crack, and rocks flew everywhere. The two of them almost could not escape. Such terrifying strength. Yang Dian was in so much pain that his face twitched. He, a powerful martial artist, was severely injured by a single attack. This lion's strength was shocking. Ned was even more shocked. He knew how strong his companion was, but he could not even take a single hit from the white lion. This time they were doomed, surrounded by wild beasts. The two of them had no choice but to rely on the crack to survive. They would die if they stuck their heads out. The wild beasts could not squeeze in. They dug into the crack with their claws, trying to dig a bigger hole. The sounds of collisions made the two of them shudder. Yang Dian took out bandages and ointment to treat his wounds. They might have to fight to the death next, so he could only endure the pain and recover. Beside him, Ned was also using all his strength to recover. Chapter 176. The beasts are starting to kill each other. Both of them were overjoyed and decided to wait and see. The battle between the beasts lasted for more than half an hour, leaving behind corpses all over the ground. The white lion was the final winner. The blood of the other beasts stained its white fur. It stood majestically in front of the crack and roared at the remaining beasts. Its roar was as loud as thunder, indicating that it was its prey. The beasts all turned around and retreated, leaving the prey to the king. Although the beasts had left, the most powerful white lion was still guarding outside. The crack was dug open, and the hole gradually expanded. Soon, The two would not be able to hide anymore. Their hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. Ned pursed his lips and said with a serious expression, "You're too heavily injured. You go and be the bait. I might be able to survive." Yang Jian looked down at his heavily injured body and said helplessly, "I can't escape. It's better to have one dead than all dead. If you can survive, remember to take care of my family. Don't worry. I'll raise your children and take care of your wife." They looked at each other and fell silent for a while. Suddenly, they smiled bitterly. "Stop talking nonsense. If we die together." Yang Jian struggled to stand up and said with a hoarse voice, "Let's fight." Ned nodded. His hands lit up with white light, ready to attack. Just as the two of them were about to rush out of the crack and fight to the death, a blue light suddenly swept across the night sky and hit the white lion's left eye. The eyeball exploded with a bang, and blood splattered everywhere. Only then did the two of them hear the faint sound of a gunshot. The white lion roared and rushed toward the direction of the gunshot like a madman. The two of them were shocked, then overjoyed. "Someone's helping." 500 meters away, Han Xiao was lying on the ground, holding the ghost sniper rifle. The circuit on the rifle was glowing with blue light. Through the scope, he saw the white lion's left eye drenched in blood and rushing toward him. This shot was enhanced by Flaming Will. His luck was not bad, and the damage was two times. Together with Overload, Critical Hit, and Sneak Attack Critical Hit, the actual damage was 1,800 points. It was the highest damage he had ever dealt. However, the white lion was still alive and kicking. Han Xiao looked at the interface. This white lion was indeed a Beast King. Its real name was Mutant White Lion King. It was a level 56 wild beast and had many molding abilities of wild beasts. Its HP was over 18,000, and this shot had only shaved off 1/9 of its HP. It also had the debuff of vision loss. Mutant White Lion King level, 56 HP, 15724/18700 status, minus 50% vision, moderate bleeding stats, 135 STR, 126 DX, 240 YND, 30 INT, 22 MYS, 31 CHA, 24 LU. Kit's attributes were very high. It also had many talents and skills. Among them, there was a very dangerous molding skill called Fury. As its HP decreased, it would greatly increase its movement speed, and attack power. This was a boss that should have been dealt with by a small team. Han Xiao was here alone. With the capabilities of the mecha, he could reduce the risk. Han Xiao got up and slid backward, firing continuously with his sniper rifle. Although he was wearing Viper, he would not directly engage in close combat. Coordination was the way to go. The combination of sniping and the mecha gave him an advantage in both close and range combat. The mecha's scanning module showed the surrounding terrain. Han Xiao did not need to look back. The mecha automatically retreated along the best route, so he could focus on dealing damage. After kiting for a while, Han Xiao emptied all the bullets of the Red Falcon and Berserk Eagle. The Mutant White Lion King was finally within a few dozen meters. He stopped retreating and rushed forward. Switch to combat mode. Han Xiao yelled. The bonfire reactor on his back lit up and buzzed. Electricity was transmitted through the bioelectric wires. The muscles of the mecha suddenly expanded, and more power burst out. As he clenched his fist, he could feel the tyrannical power in the mecha. The additional attributes of the mecha almost doubled his strength and dexterity. Yang Jian and Ned saw from afar that Han Xiao was about to clash head-on with the White Lion King. They were shocked and quickly shouted, "Dodge! Don't engage in close combat with him." This mysterious man in the mecha was here to save them. He was their hope. The scene of Yang Jian being crushed was still fresh in their minds. This mysterious man was very likely to repeat the same mistake. Such a small human actually chose to clash head-on with such a huge beast. It was like hitting a rock with an egg. The collision between a human and a lion would definitely result in a crushing scene. The two could not bear to see this scene. However, the mysterious man was not sent flying as they expected. Instead, the White Lion King roared in pain. The huge White Lion King was actually pushed back, and half of Han Zhao's body was buried in the ground. Their strength was actually on par. Han Zhao's weight was smaller. He channeled his strength into the ground, so he was not sent flying. He exerted force in his legs and suddenly bounced up from the ground. His leg hit the White Lion King's head like a whip, creating a loud bang and creating ripples in the air. The White Lion King's skull was obviously deformed. Its huge body actually rolled out and landed heavily on the ground. Oh my God! Yang Dian and Ned were stunned by this scene. The difference in size between the two was dozens of times. The terrifying White Lion King actually lost to the mysterious man in terms of strength. Yang Dian's throat was dry. This scene was too shocking. What he could not do did not mean that others could not. He had fought some stronger martial artists before, and he felt that none of them were on par with the White Lion King. However, this mysterious man was so strong. What kind of mecha is that? I've never heard of it. Yang Dian was shocked. Ned's eyes widened. Could it be the secret research of some big organization's laboratory? In battle mode, Viper gave Han Zhao 78 points of strength and 45 points of dexterity. Han Zhao's strength and dexterity attributes were higher than the White Lion King's and comparable to a martial artist of the same level. What was more terrifying was that his overload could increase the attributes of Viper. Han Zhao had noticed Yang Dian and Ned long ago. He did not know what they were, so he did not bother with them. He controlled the mecha and fought with the mutant White Lion King. Every punch and kick had extremely high strength damage. The bonfire reactor continuously provided energy, and the tall armor blocked the White Lion King's attacks. It was a waste to use only his fists and kicks. Han Zhao activated the thermoelectric incisor gauntlets, which had burn damage and left horrifying burns. The sunworm spewed out flames and ignited the White Lion King's beautiful fur, burning it black. It was a tragic scene. The man and the lion fought like wild beasts. The ground became bumpy. The two people in the distance felt the tremors like an earthquake and watched this fierce battle in shock. Han Zhao was small and agile, so he had the upper hand. Although the White Lion King's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer, Han Zhao was able to dodge most of them. Even if he hit the White Lion King, he could not break through the armor of the mecha. Yang Dian and Ned wanted to help, but they realized that they could not. If they helped recklessly, they might even become a burden. Furthermore, they could not bring themselves to abandon their reinforcements and run away. They could only watch nervously from the side, feeling extremely helpless. At the same time, the two of them were very surprised by Han Zhao's mecha. They had never heard of any country developing such a powerful single combat equipment. Blue Star's mecha research had been progressing very slowly. It was rumored that only Theseus had a prototype exoskeleton mecha. However, it was extremely cumbersome and could not increase the user's physical performance. The level of this mysterious mecha was beyond their knowledge. In a galactic civilization, single combat mechas were the standard equipment of ordinary soldiers. To reduce the gap between them and supers, mechas were also very cost-effective weapons for the players. Chapter 177. The White Lion King leaped up and used its ability to kill. The wind was close to his head, but Han Zhao's expression did not change. He aimed his arm at the sky and activated the repulsive field driver. An invisible repulsive wave shot out from his wrist, and the White Lion King was pushed up into the air, landing heavily on the ground. Han Zhao activated many modules, and the energy of the mechanical suit slowly decreased. After countless punches, the White Lion King's health dropped to about 30%. The White Lion King roared at the sky, and its skin turned blood red. It entered a stronger state of rage. If it were a player, it would be entering the second stage. Han Zhao felt the pressure suddenly increase. It's best not to fight head-on in rage. Han Zhao chose to avoid it and retreated. Being able to fight and run was his battle style. After chasing for a while, the White Lion King slowed down and showed signs of fatigue. At this time, the cooldown of Flaming Will was over. Han Zhao picked up the Ghost Sniper rifle and fired at the other eye of the mutant White Lion King. This was the highest multiplier of Flaming Will, 4. 1 times. Oh my god. With one shot, the remaining eye exploded. The White Lion King was heavily injured and fell into the dust, unable to move. It only had a few hundred health points left. It's dead. Han Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. The modified version of Viper was much more powerful than he had expected. It made up for the weakness of the mechanic's physical attributes, and it was more reliable in close combat. Furthermore, it was very comprehensive. Viper was the cornerstone of the second battle plan. Just like how the sniper style was slowly taking shape, the mechanical suit also needed to be perfected with new modules. It was currently just a prototype. This battle was a practical test. Han Xiao secretly analyzed the direction of the modification of the mechanical suit. There was room for improvement in long range, close combat, and stealth. Han Xiao finished off the White Lion King, took out his retractable knife, and dug out the heart of the mutant White Lion King. It was the size of a basketball and covered in purple blood vessels. You have received special item, Mutant Heart. X1, you have triggered the mission, Virus Research. Mission Introduction. All the beasts in this area are infected by the death virus. Some organizations need samples that are strong enough for research. That's right, I'm talking about the heart in your hand. Mission requirements. Deliver the mutated heart to the Lewis Institute of Biological Research within 7 days. Reward. 1 death virus potion. This quest was an additional reward triggered by the heart. Handing over the heart would grant a potion that permanently increased one's attributes. There was also a chance to awaken a rare talent. In Shurfang's previous life, every time a Beast King boss spawned in the Laubert area, it would be hunted down and killed by players within a few hours. Because the potion made from the death virus could be used repeatedly, the large guilds had always occupied the area to farm these monsters. The Lewis Biological Research Institute was a public large-scale biological research institute. Players could use all sorts of strange materials to exchange for the same strange potions. Some of the potions were sold openly, and it was located in Maple. Han Xiao took out the prepared liquid nitrogen metal box and put the lion's heart inside. At this time, Yang Dian and Ned walked up hesitantly as they heard footsteps. Thank you for your help. Yang Dian studied Viper's modified visor curiously. Unfortunately, he couldn't see Han Xiao's face. Han Xiao didn't say anything. He checked his ammo and armor, then got up and left. The smell of blood here would attract wild beasts. He needed to find a place to rest quickly. The two of them looked at each other awkwardly and understood each other's intentions. They hurriedly caught up to Han Xiao, introduced themselves, and said hopefully, "We came to the Robert Forbidden Zone to save an exploration team." In order to solve the problem of the virus, they entered deep into the Robert Forbidden Zone alone and have lost contact with them. We hope you can help us. You have triggered a Level D mission. Save the exploration team. Do you accept? Reject. Han Xiao waved his hand and adjusted his voice to a synthetic voice. Don't bother me. The success rate of saving people was too low. The longer they stayed in the area, the more danger they would be in. Han Xiao's only goal was the mutated heart. He had already completed his goal, so there was no need to waste time. He didn't want to be led by the nose by the mission. They're in danger because of the virus. How can you leave them in the lurch? Ned said anxiously. Han Xiao activated his hover boots and left. His meaning was clear. You can do whatever you want, but don't involve me. The two of them watched helplessly as Han Xiao left. Not everyone was as kind as them. The two understood that, but they could only regret that they had lost a powerful helper. After leaving the Laubert Forbidden area, Han Xiao returned to the transport plane parked far away. He took off his mechanical suit and heaved a sigh of relief. Viper's performance was excellent. He was very satisfied with the results. The plane took off, and the next stop was Maple. Contact Lewis Research Institution, exchange the heart for medicine, and complete the threat mission. The contact of the Blood Pack Society was also in Maple. Han Xiao looked at the mission brief on the computer. My contacts are 2 assassins. This name sounds familiar. Golden Fox? I think I've seen it somewhere. Han Xiao raised an eyebrow, but didn't think much of it. He opened the forums and focused on the problems of the players. There were still 2 novice villages left in the western continent, and the newbies that were crying piteously for food. The average level of the players was almost LV10. At this stage in Han Zhao's previous life, they had already started to leave the novice villages on a large scale. However, because of Han Zhao's existence, a portion of the players obediently stayed in the novice villages, waiting for Han Zhao's arrival. This felt great. His actions had indirectly influenced the behavior of the players. It was all thanks to his actions during this period of time that he had gained a certain amount of influence among the players. Looking at the forums, a few new posts caught his attention. Most of the people who posted were players from the Andria continent, complaining. Please ask, why did the Germinal organization come to the novice villages to capture people? I've been brainwashed. My faction is locked, and even my favorability is gone. How did this happen? The NPC cut me into pieces and asked me about my background. Me too. Is this an unexpected plot? But I don't have any interface notifications. The players recorded the actions of the Germinal organization in the novice villages. The fully armed Germinal organization soldiers handcuffed the players one by one. Some players resisted, and the Germinal organization soldiers shot them directly. The bullets were tranquilizers. A bunch of players were handcuffed and sat in the carriage. It was very crowded. Only the railings of the carriage door could see the outside world. It was like a prison cell. Then, these players were brought to the Germinal organization bases. On the Andria continent, the Germinal organization bases were not as secretive as the bases in the other 3 continents. Every base of the headquarters was very large, ostentatious, and heavily guarded. The land of the Andria continent was bare and brown. If one looked down from satellite, they would see that the Germinal organization bases were black areas scattered on the yellow land, like infected patches. This abandoned continent was full of radiation and dust, and life was withering. The Germinal organization took over many old country ruins and inherited many facilities, including the former military forbidden zones. The inhuman incident has begun. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He had experienced this incident in his previous life. It had caused a lot of discussion among the players, and it was the hottest topic at that time. The curiosity of the NPCs toward the players was the core attraction of Galaxy. The existence of the players was a part of the story. Every novice planet showed different attitudes toward the players, and now, Blue Star was the earliest sign of this incident. In the past, Han Zhao watched the show as a player. Now that he had a different perspective, he felt that he should be able to see something else. I made the Germinal organization lose all of their bases. Fewer players will join their faction. The Germinal organization will probably realize how big of a loss they have suffered. He felt very happy when he imagined the scene of the leader being angry. Turning on the computer, Han Zhao browsed the information on the darknet. The existence of the players had been noticed by more forces. The natives of Blue Star were surprised by this group of uninvited guests. I think the 6 nations will take action soon. This way, the expedition war will be delayed for a while, but it will be much earlier than in my previous life. Han Zhao narrowed his eyes. There were pros and cons to bringing forward the war. The good thing was that the players had not grown up yet. When the 6 nations and the Germinal organization clash head-on, the role of the players would be greatly reduced, and there would be fewer unexpected factors. With the 6 nations' strength, as long as the players did not cause trouble, they would be able to beat the Germinal organization. Chapter 178. Star Dragon Capital, West Capital, Division 13 Headquarters, underground of the Dragonhorn Building. Gu Hui, the Deputy Director, and the 13 directors gathered in a secret meeting room. Gu Hui pressed a button on the table, and the door was sealed. The windows were closed, and all surveillance equipment was disabled. Gu Hui's expression was serious. He distributed the paper files to all the members in the meeting. They were stamped with the seal of the highest authority, which meant that this was confidential information that had been reviewed by the highest authority. It contained the observation of the inhuman phenomenon. 5 days ago, there was a rumor about the existence of inhumans on the darknet. After investigation, it has been confirmed that it is not a rumor. The files are very clear that the inhuman phenomenon is spreading like a virus in all the continents. They appear out of nowhere, and their origins are unknown. According to the information circulating on the darknet, the Inhumans have the following characteristics. GUI explained. It was similar to the preliminary research of the Germinal organization. They could disappear into thin air and would not die. He also added, according to the observation, the Inhumans are generally not strong, and the threat is considered low. But if we don't stop the inhuman phenomenon, it might spread like an epidemic and become a disaster, someone said in a low voice. GUI nodded. The highest authority has given the order to contact these Inhumans. This is the most important mission now. Then what about the expedition? The resources have been gathered, and the army is ready. We can go to Andrea at any time. The highest authority has reached a consensus with the leaders of the other countries to stop the expedition and find out what the inhuman phenomenon is. This is related to a greater security risk. GUI knocked on the table and looked at everyone seriously. Let our people bring some Inhumans back. It's best to be friendly when we don't know their origins. The field director said, some agents have infiltrated Andrea. Should we call them back? No, let them continue to spy. We have enough manpower in the country, GUI said. When we have a conclusion, maybe the highest authority will try to ask for help from the galactic civilizations to find an answer. As the level of the players increased, their behavior became more active, which attracted the attention of various organizations. The Six Nations, the Wanderers, the Darknet, and the large financial groups were all paying attention to the inhuman phenomenon. They sent people to contact them with different attitudes, either gentle or cold. Only the Germinal organization was the most extreme. They captured the players of Andrea and forced the players in the Novice Village to leave the Novice Village early. In fact, the players did not really care which faction they joined, but if they were forced to, they would be conflicted. The Germinal organization did not leave a good impression on the players. As for the players who were captured, they could only accept their fate. The players of the Andrea continent lived a hard life every day, and their gaming experience was terrible. However, this phenomenon surprised the players. Why would the NPCs be surprised by their existence? They were not rigid at all, and seemed like real people. More factions began to contact the players, and more players encountered similar situations. Their interest was immediately piqued, and they actively speculated on the forums, suppressing the popularity of other topics. The players from the other novice planets had not encountered a similar situation yet. They all flocked to the Blue Star board to watch the show, and their traffic jumped to the highest among all the novice planets. There were hundreds of new posts every second. The enthusiasm of the players was phenomenal. All sorts of speculations emerged. Speculations similar to Electrolux were put forward. This was the most reasonable explanation to the public, but the game officials did not make any announcements. The players could only guess blindly. Many players had their imaginations running wild. Actually, we are all samsara travelers. We are opening up a new world in the god space. Number A12651 reporting for duty. Nonsense. We are the expeditionary force of Earth to invade another dimension. We have a great mission. Earth Federation's 798th Space Fleet Lieutenant Haida Zhuang is on standby. Earth will win. You're all wrong. This is actually the real world. Earth is just a dream. Humph, young people, everything is set up by the elders. You are too naive. Hee, this is the first step of Skynet's rule over humanity. One day, our consciousness will be trapped in the game. Long live Hydra. The person above is in the wrong place. Sigh, I am a retired soldier from the 1999 battle. Now that I think about it, it was a dark time. The person above is in good shape. You're still playing virtual online games at such an old age. All sorts of speculations formed a trend on the forums. The players had their imaginations running wild, laughing and joking, and it became a meme. In general, the forces that came into contact with the players were probing and cautious. This made it easier for the players to trigger factions, which was actually beneficial. Only the players of Andrea were being hunted down and complained incessantly. Han Xiao was paying attention to the development of the situation. He had the intelligence network of the Darknet and the forum, so he could see much more than the players or NPCs. The major forces were cautious and serious, while the players were surprised and thought it was fun. The two sides had completely different attitudes. Interesting. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. The influence of the inhuman incident was slowly fermenting. The various forces were gradually studying the characteristics of the players. Those powerful players in my previous life must have had their own opportunities. Han Xiaoxin thought. Blue Star was the headquarters of China. There would always be a small number of lucky players who would have opportunities that normal players would not have. The plot was on the right track. Han Xiao seized the time to act. There was a time limit to the mission of changing the heart, so he first went to Maple to submit the mission. The Lewis Research Institute was located in Maple City, Kanlos. This time, it was not at the border, so Han Xiao snuck in alone. It would take him 2 days to reach his destination. Maple was a country that lacked vitality. The bureaucratic system was rigid, and the distribution of wealth was uneven. The resources were tightly controlled by the oligarchs, and the people of the lower class had no room for improvement. The best way to describe the civilians of Maple was to just eat and wait for death. Walking on the streets, the pedestrians with sad faces passed by him. Han Xiao rubbed his face. He felt that a sunny, confident, and stylish man like him did not fit in with the decadent people around him. This time, Han Xiao changed his face and wore glasses. He did not believe that he would be recognized again. The Lewis Research Institute was tall and had a very technological atmosphere. It was silver-white, and the people walking in and out were all wearing white coats. It was as if they were afraid that others would not know that they were doing research. As soon as he walked in, there was a receptionist who greeted him with a courteous smile. "Hello, do you need me to introduce the business scope of the Lewis Research Institute to you?" Han Xiao waved the metal box in his hand. "I have the heart of a creature infected by the death virus. Maybe one of your researchers will be interested in it. Please wait for a moment. I'll go ask my superiors." The receptionist led Han Xiao to the sofa in the hall and left. The Lewis Research Institute accepted all kinds of outsourced experiments, so there were often customers. Han Xiao leaned on the sofa and looked around the hall. The structure was circular, like a hotel lobby. After a while, 2 people walked into the hall with bandages wrapped around their bodies. Han Xiao's nose twitched, and he smelled blood. He looked up and realized that these 2 were the superheroes that he had met in Robert Potter's Forbidden Zone. These 2 seemed to have gone to save an exploration team. Could it be the team from the Lewis Research Institute? From the looks of it, he failed and was injured all over. Chapter 179. Yang Jian and Ned were frustrated. The exploration team they had gone to rescue was a member of the Lewis Research Institution, and the client was also the Lewis Research Institution. After Han Xiao left, the 2 of them rested for a while and searched carefully. Finally, they found their target in the small valley where the exploration team had disappeared. However, all the members of the exploration team were infected with the death virus and mutated. Bone spikes protruded from their bodies, turning them into frenzied beasts. There was no saving them. The leader of the exploration team barely maintained his consciousness. He gave a metal box to the 2, saying that it was an important material that could be used to develop an antidote for the death virus. He asked them to bring it back to the institution. The 2 could only bear the pain and abandon the exploration team that was beyond saving and leave the forbidden area with the box. They were attacked by a group of beasts on the way. In order to protect the metal box, they did not hesitate to use their bodies to protect it. In the end, they were lucky enough to escape with wounds all over their bodies. Fortunately, the box was intact. Dragging their tired bodies, they took a flight back to Kanlos. Yang Jian and Ned came to the institution with guilty feelings. They were already mentally prepared to be blamed by the institution for not being able to save the exploration team. They felt that they had failed the client's trust. A man wearing glasses who seemed to be a high-ranking person walked out of the elevator and quickly walked toward Yang Jian and Ned with hope on his face. "Heroes, you're back." His tone was very warm. Ned said apologetically, "Mr. Kate, I'm sorry. We couldn't complete the mission." Kate's expression changed. Could it be that they've all been killed? I'm sorry. They were infected. We couldn't do anything. Yang Jian did not dare to look at Kate's sad face. It's not your fault. Kate took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. His attitude made Yang Jian and Ned very uncomfortable. Ned took out the metal box and said, "This is the relic that the exploration team asked us to pass to you. It contains important material that can solve the death virus's source." Kate took the metal box and stroked it. He said in a pained tone, "Sigh, if only they could come back. This is their contribution, and we will never forget it. If we make a product, we will definitely name it after them." The two agreed. Yang Jian sighed and said, "They are heroes. Not being able to save them will be the regret of my life." "You're exaggerating. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't have been able to transfer their efforts. You've done your best, but don't blame yourselves. If you don't mind, we can treat you for free," Kate said gratefully. "No need. I can't trouble you anymore." The more grateful Kate was, the more ashamed Yang Jian and Ned felt. They quickly waved their hands and refused the invitation. Holding each other, they left with their backs straight and proud. Kate adjusted his glasses and watched the two leave. Then he walked up to Han Xiao and smiled. "Hello, do you have any business to entrust to our research institute?" Han Xiao smiled and opened the metal box to show Kate the mutated heart. "This is a heart infected by the death virus. The source is a very powerful individual." Kate's eyes lit up, and he forced a smile. "Please follow me." Kate led the way in front, and Han Xiao followed him into the elevator. When they reached the 13th floor, they saw a long white corridor with laboratories on both sides. The windows were double-sided, and one could see inside from the outside. Some of the laboratories had people doing experiments, and some of the rooms were filled with experimental equipment and materials. There were also researchers chatting in the corridor with nothing to do. The 13th floor was one of the laboratories of Lewis Research Institution. Kate led the way and said, "The death virus has always been an important research project, but we've always been at a bottleneck because we lack active materials. This heart is very important to us, and we might be able to make a potion in one go. As usual, you will receive a finished product after the potion is made. Of course, if you want other rewards, that's not a problem." "No, I want the potion." Han Xiao pointed at the metal box in Kate's hand, which was what Yang Jian and Ned gave him. "I thought you already had the materials." "This? Haha, this is also a very important thing." Kate smiled, but didn't explain in detail. When they arrived at a large biological laboratory, Kate stopped and said, "Please wait outside. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter." Han Xiao gave the box to Kate, and Kate walked into the laboratory with the two boxes. He started talking with someone who seemed to be the supervisor of the laboratory. The two boxes were opened on the table, and Han Xiao saw that the other box contained a snow-white egg. He had no idea what kind of creature it belonged to. Kate and the supervisor talked in a low voice. Han Xiao's ears twitched, and his LV-55 senses took in the conversation. "What about the exploration team? Are they all dead?" the supervisor asked. "Yeah, those two heroes didn't manage to save anyone," Kate said. "Luckily, the stuff was transferred. It doesn't matter if they died. With this heart, we can make the potion very soon." "What did those two heroes say?" "They felt that they betrayed our trust." "Haha, hiring superheroes is much more cost-effective than hiring mercenaries. As long as we give them a good reason, they will even work for us for free. It saved me a lot of money." "You didn't expose yourself, did you?" "Of course not. They were stupid and naive. Just a few words of lies, and they were so moved that they almost cried." These so-called heroes are the easiest to coax. Praise and gratitude can make them dizzy. When they left, they thought that they had done something great. I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. Don't offend superheroes. Try to make friends with them. Don't worry, I left a good impression on them. Next time, if you need anything, you can find them. As long as you come up with a good reason, they definitely won't reject you. Han Zhao's eyes flashed, but his expression didn't change. He waited quietly. After a while, Kate ended the conversation and returned to the door. He said with a polite smile, "It will take a day to make the potion. If you don't mind, we will provide a room for you to rest in. The potion will be handed to you as soon as it is done." "Okay." Han Xiao had no objections. The two of them took the elevator to the residential floor, and Han Xiao was assigned a guest suite. Kate instructed him not to wander around before excusing himself. Han Xiao looked around the room to see if there were any cameras. He found two, so he took out his computer, hacked into the network, and controlled the cameras in the room. He froze the image and played it on a loop. Then, he directly hacked into the database of the Research Institute and browsed through the various research projects. His basic programming was maxed out. His hacking skills were enough to break through most of the firewalls in Blue Star's network. Apart from the Six Nations secrets, the Germinal organization's headquarters, the core of the darknet, and a few other important networks, a small research institute couldn't stop him. It was as if he had entered a no-man's land. He didn't trigger any alarms in the research institute. After he finished reading, he would even erase the traces. No one would know that he had hacked into the network. He opened the Research Institute's project file, and the projects flashed on the screen. Green lizard potion, bull hormone, thunderclaw extract, grouper plague pathogen. Many of the names were potions that players had obtained in his previous life. After a while, he finally saw the Death Virus Project. Its full name was Death Virus Enhancement Potion. In the project's detailed records, there were funds from various financial groups. This was an experiment to enhance one's physical strength. As for the Death Virus antidote that Kate told Yang Jian and Ned about, the Research Institute didn't do any research on it. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He quickly typed on the keyboard and installed the program. Chapter 180. After a night's rest, Kate returned the next day with a metal box. He placed the box on a coffee table and patted it lightly. The potion is ready. Han Xiao opened the box. Inside was a tube of thick, crimson-red potion. He touched it, and a notification appeared on the interface. Death Virus Enhancer. Low concentration 3. 5% a potion created by a mutated virus. The essence is extracted and can be used by humans. High stability. Effect. STR +1. DX +1. Chance to awaken. Extraordinary physique. Note: don't be fooled by its color. The taste is, it's only low concentration. You gave me the lowest quality potion. Han Xiao closed the box and smiled. I'm very satisfied. I look forward to working with you again, Kate said politely. There's no need to look forward to it. I want to buy more. Do you have any stock? Lewis only provides long-term batches of products to large customers. If you're a single customer, especially a single customer with unknown origins, we're in a difficult position. I hope you can understand. If you can prove that you have the ability to pay for the long term, we'll sell you the potion in batches. Kate's face showed just the right amount of awkwardness. It was as if he wanted to agree but could only reject because of the rules. However, in the eyes of a veteran like Han Xiao, it was deliberate. He was most likely raising the price. Han Xiao smiled mysteriously and adjusted his collar. Let me formally introduce myself. I'm the executive officer of the Germinal organization, Heisenberg. Kate ate half a kilogram. The Germinal organization? Didn't they leave the Western continent? Is this Heisenberg a secret executive? Or is he a liar? Forgive me for being blunt, but your identity is very suspicious. Kate took 2 steps back and reached into his pocket to grab the alarm. As long as Han Xiao made a move, he would trigger the alarm. Don't be nervous. Give me a moment. Han Xiao carried his backpack and walked into the toilet. Why is he going to the toilet? Kate was confused. Just as he was confused, Han Xiao, who had changed into Viper, walked out. This high-tech mechanical suit instantly stunned Kate. You are... Han Xiao swung his arms and said in an electronically synthesized voice through the helmet. This is the latest single-soldier mechanical suit that the Germinal organization has developed. If you have good eyes, you should be able to see that the technology in it is very advanced. Even the official laboratories of the Six Nations do not have this kind of technology. You don't have to worry that I am a liar. This is a secret project of the organization, so it should be able to prove my identity. Kate opened his mouth and felt that something was wrong. But I know what you're worried about. If you want to find the emblem of the Germinal organization on the mechanical suit, save your energy. Times are tough now, and it's dangerous to be too high profile. I've been given full authority to handle this matter. If you want to contact the higher-ups of the organization, forgive me for being blunt, but you're not qualified yet." Han Zhao's tone was so serious that he almost believed what he said. Kate hesitated. "I need to discuss this with the other higher-ups." He walked to the side and turned on his tablet to contact the other higher-ups. They were all supervisors of the laboratory, and they were all surprised by Han Zhao's background. He can't prove his background. He can't be trusted. Do you want him to shout, "I am the germinal organization everywhere"? I don't think he needs to lie. When the deal is done, we will know if it's true or not. That makes sense. But working with the germinal organization seems a little dangerous, Han Xiao interrupted. All our deals are confidential. If we don't say anything, no one will know. We can even sponsor you to set up a branch in Andrea. The eyes of the higher-ups of the research institute lit up. Andrea was full of radiation, and there were many mutated animals and plants. Others avoided it like a tiger, but it was a treasure trove for them. They had heard about the generosity of the germinal organization, but they could not tolerate the corruption of the officials in Maple. A change of environment seemed like a good idea. Even if they did not move the headquarters, it would be good to set up a research branch in Andrea. Then let's try a deal. Take him to the exhibition room. After reaching a conclusion, Kate quickly smiled and said, "We agree to the deal. Heisenberg, please follow me. I will show you the results of our research." Han Xiao nodded. Without taking off his mechanical suit, he followed Kate into the elevator to the second basement floor. The pharmaceutical exhibition room looked like a refrigerator door. After Kate entered the password, the door slid open automatically. Inside was a dark compound room divided into 2 levels. The metal stairs connected the 2 levels. There were glass cabinets by the wall with different colors of drugs. The labels had their names and experimental results. There were a few finished products of each drug, labeled with different concentrations. "These are the results of the Research Institute. What kind of drugs does your organization need?" Kate asked with a smile. Han Xiao pretended to look around and said, "Every kind. Money is not a problem. It depends on whether you have enough." The higher-ups who were watching the situation through the camera were overjoyed. This was a big order. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. "But I have to check the effects of the drugs first." Kate opened the door of the cabinet and took out a bottle of drugs. He handed it to Han Xiao. Han Xiao looked at the information on the interface. It was a temporary buff. After drinking it, one would gain a buff, endurance +3, for 3 minutes. After confirming that the drugs in the cabinet were real, Han Xiao said, "I want a lot of them." Kate received the order through his earpiece. He took out his laptop and opened the price page. He smiled and said, "We have enough stock. After you pay, these cute little things are all yours." Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. "I will only pay if I see the goods with my own eyes." "You're exaggerating. We're just a civilian organization. We wouldn't dare to offend a huge organization like yours. We won't go back on our word. I hope you can understand our concerns. Besides, your organization doesn't lack this bit of money." Kate was all smiles and his attitude was firm. "Looks like I can only lie to this extent." Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He did not plan to pay at all. He took out his gun and pointed it at Kate's forehead. He said coldly, "This is my payment." Bang! The tablet fell to the ground. The threat of the gun made Kate tremble. He said, "You are a fake." Han Xiao did not answer. He shot at the cabinet. However, the bulletproof glass cracked and did not break. The higher-ups in the monitoring room were shocked. "He wants to steal our results." Luckily, we brought him to the exhibition room. There are safety measures there. The metal door of the exhibition room suddenly closed and locked. The cabinet was retracted into the wall, leaving no trace. The room became empty. The ceiling moved, revealing 3 rows of black holes. The range of the gun covered the entire room. There was no blind spot. Han Xiao and Kate were both under the gun muzzles. The higher-ups of the Research Institute said proudly. Chapter 181. The higher-ups of the Research Institute were very angry. They felt like they had been played like a monkey. However, since the swindler had walked right into their trap, they immediately gloated. Did he not know whose territory this was? How dare he come here and cause trouble? In the exhibition room, Kate's expression did not change. He calmly stepped back and adjusted his collar. He looked at Han Xiao arrogantly and said, "If you do anything, such as trying to take me hostage, you will immediately become a civ. So, don't think about taking risks. Put down your gun and surrender obediently. Then, you can still live." Han Xiao raised his head and looked at the dark defensive machine gun array. In the corner of the ceiling, there was a surveillance camera. The higher-ups were watching his every move through the surveillance camera. He also knew that the vent could release nerve gas. He was expressionless as he spoke a voice command. "Activate program." The smart chip of the mech instantly recognized the command and processed it into an electromagnetic message. The smart chip of the mech connected to the standby computer and entered the Research Institute's network. It activated the hacking program that was planted in the Research Institute the night before. The Research Institute's network was like a domino, and this hacking program was the first one to fall. It caused a chain reaction. It did not take much effort to break through the base level of the Research Institute's network. The control system changed hands within a few seconds. This was not a hacking program that Han Xiao had written on the spot. He had created all kinds of smart chips before. In order to prevent the control system from being taken away, he had created a lot of anti-hacking programs. At the same time, he had also written some hacking programs. He had never had the chance to use them. The map of the Research Institute appeared on the tactical holographic screen. Han Xiao gave the command. The wall of the exhibition room cracked open, and the medicine cabinet appeared again. The machine gun array on the ceiling retracted, and the door opened with a bang. When he hacked into the Research Institute's network yesterday, he had seen the structure of the Research Institute. He already knew the safety measures of the exhibition room. The Research Institute also had some heavily guarded warehouses that stored a large amount of medicine. However, the amount was too large. Han Xiao could only carry a limited amount of medicine. The amount of medicine in the exhibition room was just right. The sudden change made the higher-ups of the Research Institute pale. What happened? The system suddenly went out of control. Quickly take back the control. The technician on the side was sweating profusely as he typed furiously on the keyboard. Lines of code appeared one after another. Suddenly, the screen turned green and the system crashed. The technician said with a sad face, "No, the hacking speed of the opponent's program is too fast. It can't be solved in a short time." He was already prepared yesterday. The higher-ups gritted their teeth in hatred. In the exhibition room, Kate was dumbfounded. Facing Han Zhao's pitch-black goggles, fear gripped his heart. His legs gave way, and he fell to the ground. He said in a panic, "Aye, bang." A smoking muzzle appeared on the ground between his legs. Kate was so scared that he peed his pants and didn't dare to move. "Stay on the side and don't move. You still have a chance to live." Han Zhao's tone was playful. Okay, calm down," Kate hurriedly replied. His back was drenched in cold sweat, and he obediently shivered like a quail. Han Xiao smashed open all the display cabinets. With the enhancement of the mech, the power of his fists was even greater than bullets. He took out his backpack and stuffed all the medicines into it. He patted his bag in satisfaction. What a bountiful harvest. At first, he didn't have the intention of robbing the research center until he accidentally heard the conversation between Kate and the higher-ups about Yang Jian and Ned. Since the people in the research center weren't decent people, Han Xiao wasn't interested in talking to them nicely. Since they were all bad people, he would play by the rules of the bad guys. Whoever had the bigger fist could take whatever they wanted. If the person he talked to had beliefs, ambitions, and a bottom line that he thought was reliable, Han Xiao wouldn't mind talking to them normally. If the person he didn't like and wasn't strong enough, then he wouldn't hold back. He would unleash his original nature as a player and rob whatever he saw. He was very interested in the medicine from the research center. In fact, he liked to win people over with kindness. If they didn't like it, then he would beat them up. Although Han Xiao didn't love the world as much as the superheroes and didn't like the spirit of sacrificing oneself for others, he liked kind people. Being friends with good people in the general sense was, of course, more comfortable than dealing with bad people. Even bad people were more willing to be friends with good people because it was safe and untainted. Unfortunately, People's morals were deteriorating day by day. Good people were becoming fewer and fewer. You couldn't tell which smiling face was hiding evil intentions, and you couldn't tell which brothers were willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. On the surface, they called each other brothers, but behind their backs, they were gossiping. Even people from the same hometown would turn around and stab you in the crotch. Good people were rare animals. They could even be put in zoos. The word zoo wasn't appropriate. It would be better to change it to news broadcast or touching China. The Research Institute played the heroes in the palm of their hands because there were such snobbish and hypocritical people. Good people who were straightforward were becoming fewer and fewer, making it harder and harder to survive in society. The construction of spiritual civilization was collapsing, but in a sense it did feel like uniqueness. Most of the time, your persistence was just a duty in the eyes of others, and your hard work was just a means for others to squeeze benefits out of you. People's feelings were not the same, just like how the Lewis Research Institution took advantage of Yang Dian and Ned's enthusiasm. It was also like how he took away the hard work of the Research Institute. A saying suddenly popped up in Han Zhao's mind. What goes around comes around. Evil people will naturally be dealt with by evil people. I become an evil person. Han Zhao couldn't help but laugh. It was rare to have the opportunity to do bad things with a clear conscience. He wouldn't spend money on a target that he could rob. The next time he changed his face, it would be another unfamiliar customer. Now is not the time to count his gains. Han Zhao carried his backpack and strode to the elevator. Kate collapsed on the ground and heaved a sigh of relief. She still had some lingering fear. The upper echelons in the monitoring room saw that all the drugs had been taken away, and their hearts were bleeding. One of the upper echelons said angrily, "Hurry up and think of a way." "Got it. Get the control room to cut off all the power in the underground floor and trap him. Ask for help from the Maple government immediately. We still have guards. All of them are gathered at the entrance. As long as we can stall the enemy for 15 minutes, once the army arrives, I will make sure that he dies without a complete corpse." When he reached the elevator, all the lights on the entire floor suddenly went off at the same time. It was pitch black. Han Zhao raised his eyebrows and switched to night vision mode. He laughed in his mind. Cut off the power? I knew it. Han Zhao bent his legs, and the elastic force generated by the nano muscle fibers gathered in his legs. The ground cracked open, and his entire body was like a cannonball, blasting through the ceiling and directly jumping upstairs. After 2 consecutive jumps, Han Zhao crashed into the hall. He immediately saw the bodyguards gathering at the entrance. There were only 20 of them now, not even 1/5 of the total number of guards in the Research Institute. Han Zhao's way of going upstairs was too fast, and the Research Institute didn't have much time to react. The upper echelons of the Research Institute were shocked by the performance of the mechanical suit. They hurriedly ordered the bodyguards to attack. Stall the enemy. The other bodyguards will be here in 10 seconds. F***CK. Before he could finish his order, Han Zhao had already sprang into action and knocked over the bodyguard in an instant. Like a bowling ball hitting a grand slam, Han Zhao's momentum did not slow down as he smashed through the glass of the door and disappeared into the street. He was so fast that only a black shadow was left in everyone's eyes. The upper echelons of the Research Institute were furious. They had high hopes that the bodyguards would be able to stall for at least 15 minutes, but they didn't even last 3 seconds. Seeing that they couldn't get the drugs back, the upper echelons' hearts bled. When will the Maple Army arrive? At least 10 minutes. It's too late. That bastard has already escaped. Is there any other way? Kate recovered and immediately said, "The 2 superheroes are still in the city. I'll contact them immediately." Chapter 182. Yang Jian received a call from Kate and asked in confusion, "Mr. Kate, are you looking for us?" Kate sounded anxious. A robber stole the research results of the Research Institute, including the antidote to the death virus. If we can't get it back, our research results will be gone. The army won't be able to arrive in time, so we can only rely on you. The two's faces turned serious. "We will definitely help." "Great. We can only rely on you. I'll send you the coordinates right away. The enemy is a man in a black mechanical suit. Black mechanical suit? Yang Dian and Ned's expressions changed. Could it be him? Running on the streets in a mechanical suit was too eye-catching. As soon as he left the research institute, he climbed to the roof of a nearby building and escaped from there. Even if someone saw him, the impact will be much smaller. He planned to find a secluded corner to take off the mechanical suit and change his appearance. So many potions. It's enough for me to drink like water every day. Han Xiao chuckled. After turning a few streets, Han Xiao jumped into a deserted alley. At this time, the radar showed that 2 strong live targets were tracking him. Searching through the database automatically, he found matches. They were the 2 superheroes that he had seen twice before. They're tracking me? Han Xiao thought about it and knew that they were tricked by Lewis Research Institution again. At this time, a notification popped up on the interface. You have triggered the mission, Trial of a Hero. Mission Introduction. There is no lack of righteous heroes, but there is a lack of correct methods. Some people have fallen into depravity. Some people have abandoned their original intentions. Some people have lost their principles. And some people have been taken advantage of by others. Choosing righteousness is a difficult path, and you can become their trial. Mission requirements. Defeat Yang Dian and Ned and expose the truth of Lewis Research Institution. Reward. Random Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. He was interested in this mission. It felt like being a demon king. Han Xiao analyzed the data. I have a few minutes to waste. I'll play with them. Han Xiao stopped and waited. Very soon, Yang Dian and Ned's figures flashed past the entrance of the alley. After a few seconds, the 2 of them hurriedly turned around and stood at the entrance of the alley to confront him. It really is you. Yang Dian's expression was solemn. He had seen the combat strength of this mysterious mecha warrior with his own eyes. Even if he had been at his peak, he would have been knocked down with just a few punches. Moreover, he was still injured. However, when he remembered that Han Xiao had stolen the antidote to the death virus, Yang Jian mustered up his courage. Even if he could not win, he would not back down. Ned rubbed his hands, ready to attack. Even if you saved us, we can't let you take away the antidote. Antidote. It was a typical case of being betrayed and still giving money to the number of people. Ned was the first to strike. He slapped his hands forward, and a shockwave swept across the alley. The walls were peeled off, and cracks appeared on the ground. Han Xiao suddenly jumped up, drawing a rapid arc in the air, and crashed over like a cannonball. Yang Dian gritted his teeth and swung his fist forward. Bang! The fist wrapped in the mecha was like a flash of black lightning. Before Yang Dian could swing his fist, it struck Yang Dian in the chest. Yang Dian's vision blurred, and the scenery in his field of vision receded rapidly. He flew backward and was embedded into the wall with a loud bang. All the bones in his body were almost shattered from the impact. He was insta-killed in one hit. His stamina is even more terrifying than the lion that injured me. Yang Dian struggled to break free from the wall and panted heavily. Suddenly, he heard the sound of wind. Ned was also thrown over and fell beside his feet. There was a huge bump on his head. He was knocked dizzy by Han Xiao's light headbutt. He could not even last 3 seconds. He could not fight back at all. Yang Dian was filled with grief and anger. How could he stop the enemy like this? A sense of helplessness pierced through their hearts. Han Xiao saw that the 2 gritted their teeth and were about to stand up. He looked at the timer in the corner of the holographic screen. He had given himself 5 minutes to deal with these 2 superheroes, but the situation was simpler than he had imagined. He had defeated the 2 in less than 10 seconds. These 2 were supers above LV-30. With his current strength, he was basically unparalleled. He took a few steps forward. Just as he was about to say something, Yang Dian struggled to stand up. With an unyielding and angry expression, he gritted his teeth and said, "You took away the antidote to the death virus. Many people will die. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will stop you." Han Xiao stomped his feet and said with a smile that did not look like a smile, "Dying as a hero. Other than withered flowers, empty praise, and a few fake tears, What else can you get? Yang Dian gritted his teeth. No matter what others think of me, as long as I am satisfied. Suddenly, Yang Dian's vision blurred. A large black hand expanded in his field of vision, grabbed his head, and smashed him into the wall. Debris flew everywhere. His head was bleeding. Yang Dian fell to the ground. His vision spun, and he did not even have the strength to stand up. Han Xiao took out his pistol and pointed it at Yang Dian's forehead. The black muzzle made Yang Dian shiver. He barely regained consciousness. He wanted to struggle, but Han Xiao stepped on his legs and slowly pulled the trigger. Yang Dian's eyes widened. At this moment, regret rushed into his mind uncontrollably. If I had not been so meddlesome, I would not have died today. Even if I gave it my all, I would not have been able to stop such a strong enemy. Coming here would only be suicide. I should not have agreed to your request. I was too impulsive, Ka. The trigger stopped. Yang Dian's body shook, but he did not feel any pain. He looked at Han Xiao in shock as he backed away. Only then did he feel cold sweat drenching his clothes. Although he could not see his own face, it was definitely a twisted expression filled with fear, regret, and unwillingness. What were you thinking about just now? Han Xiao asked. Yang Dian was stunned and fell silent. At the moment of death, the belief that he thought was indestructible was shaken. He was not as generous and tough as he said. At that moment, he felt regret. He even thought that agreeing to someone's request and dying was an extremely stupid thing to do. Before this, he had been working hard with the goal of becoming a superhero. He wanted to save more people, protect more civilians, and sacrifice himself for others. However, at this moment, Yang Dian only felt lost. Han Xiao put the unloaded pistol back into the holster, took out his computer, put some information into the USB flash drive, unplugged it, and threw it to Yang Dian. He then turned around and disappeared in front of the two. Yang Dian and Ned were both stunned. The enemy left just like that? Why didn't he kill us? Yang Dian held the USB flash drive in confusion. We are not his match. Don't go looking for death. Let's leave this place first. Ned supported Yang Dian as the two limped away from the scene. Another mission failure. The two were filled with shame. They did not have the face to see Kate. When they arrived at the entrance of Lewis Research Institution, the army had already arrived and sealed off the place. The two did not want to interact with the Maple Army, so they could only return to their resting place and bandage their wounds. Yang Dian had been thinking about Han Zhao's words the whole time. His mind was in a mess, and he lay on the bed in a daze. The thoughts from before kept flashing through his mind. He could feel that his concept of being a superhero was collapsing. Chapter 183. What's wrong? Yang Dian looked at the computer screen and was stunned. The contents of a USB flash drive were a portion of the project information that Han Xiao had obtained after hacking into the research facility. All the research projects related to the death virus were written on the USB flash drive. The USB flash drive contained the information that Han Xiao had obtained after hacking into the research facility. All the research projects related to the death virus were written on the USB flash drive. It also said that the exploration team that went to Robert's Forbidden Zone was just a team that went to dig for materials. The materials they brought back were used for the research of body strengthening. Is this for real? Could he be lying to us? He can kill us easily. There's no need for him to lie to us. Yang Dian and Ned's shock gradually turned into rage. It turned out that from the beginning to the end, the two of them had been fools. They had been played by the people of the Lewis Research Institute. They had naively believed the one-sided words of others. This made their persistence seem like a joke. No wonder the mysterious mecha warrior didn't kill them. He must have thought that they were pathetic, so he let them know the truth. Yang Dian was embarrassed and ashamed. He really wanted to find a hole to hide in. They had always called themselves superheroes, but they were saved by a stranger who they thought was evil for the second time. If the mysterious man hadn't revealed the truth, they would still be in the dark. Too bad we don't know his name. Otherwise, I would apologize in person. Ned was annoyed. Yang Dian nodded heavily. He called Kate and yelled, "So you've been lying to me?" Kate was shocked. "What did I lie to you about? You've been using us and making us work for you. The exploration team and the cure for the virus are all fake. What are you talking about? Why would I do that? You think too much. Kate's tone was unnatural. I already have the key evidence. The research on the death virus is not for saving people. Yang Jian repeated. Kate said, that's all fake. You must have heard the rumors. You're still lying to us. Yang Jian was furious. He repeated the project number. After a moment of silence, Kate spoke again. His tone was cold, and he didn't want to pretend anymore. So, you can do whatever you want. Yang Jian was furious, but he suddenly froze. Superhero. Kate's tone was sarcastic. He hung up the phone. Yang Jian held the phone and was stunned on the spot. His entire aura changed rapidly. Ned suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Are you okay? He hurriedly asked. Yang Jian shook his head and gently put down the phone. He let out an inexplicable laugh. I'm fine. What could happen to me? Hee. The research institute was in a mess. The higher-ups were sweating profusely as they negotiated with the military. Kate was very frustrated. He did not expect things to turn out this way. No one had ever dared to have any ideas about the research institute. They had many financial groups backing them up. Anyone who dared to touch the whiskers of the tiger would have to face an all-encompassing search and capture. Kate had already contacted the financial group behind him, and they were all furious about this incident. The other party claimed to be the executive officer of the Germinal organization, Heisenberg, and was equipped with a mechanical suit with extremely high mechanical standards. The credibility of this claim was not low. Now, that the Germinal organization was like a rat on the street, it did not matter if they made enemies or not. The financial group behind this decision decided not only to have the West Continent's intelligence network thoroughly investigate this person's whereabouts, but also to sponsor the expedition of the Six Nations and donate military funds. The financial group behind this had such a big reaction because the stolen drug were urgently needed by the leaders of the various financial groups. For this reason, they were willing to spend money to get it back. Kate was already frustrated enough. He did not even want to care about the blame of the two superheroes. He did not care if they knew that they had been tricked, because superheroes would not seek revenge over such a small matter. Kate was very calm and fearless. Trial of a hero completed. Plus 40 Yang Jian favorability. Plus 40 Ned favorability. Han Xiao waited for a long time, but there were no new notifications. The reward is gone? What I need the favorability of these two idiots for? He had never heard of these two people before. They were probably not important people. Han Xiao was speechless. Although the reward was reasonable, why did he feel so annoyed? Even some experience points will be better than this. Forget it. It's just a small mission. The biggest reward is this pile of drugs. Han Xiao lowered his head to look at the bulging bag in his hand and smiled to himself. When stealing the drugs, when snatching the drugs, Han Xiao had cleaned out the exhibition room of Lewis Research Institution. The good thing was that he could get almost all kinds of drugs. After finding a random small hotel to stay in, Han Xiao checked that there were no cameras in the room, as usual. He opened the bag and took out the different types of drugs and sat in a row. Let me see what's good. Han Xiao rubbed his hands. It was said that one could only be lucky when they were hot. Green lizard drug, medium concentration 23, 3% made with the genes of the green lizard. This is a lazy creature. After drinking it, one's mind will become calm. Han Xiao was stunned for 3 seconds. He then stood up angrily and threw it on the floor. Green my ass. What's the point of developing this drug? My luck is better than this, even if I use my feet. Staring at this pile of colorful potions, Han Xiao inexplicably felt like a black cloud formed by a pit gas was covering his head. I hope the other drugs are reliable, he continued to touch. There were a total of 34 types of drugs. Fortunately, there was nothing else like the green lizard drug. Some of the more useful ones were not bad. The high-concentration death virus enhancer was much better than the one Kate gave him. The permanent attribute bonus was more, and the chance of awakening a rare talent was 3 times higher. Rhinoceros hormone, extracted from the kidney of a rhinoceros. Plus 5 STR and plus 5 E&E after injection. Duration, 5 minutes. Next injection within 30 minutes will not work. Thunderclaw Beast Extract. Extracted from the secretion of a Thunderclaw Beast. Plus 12% melee attack for the next 5 attacks. Grouper Plague Pathogen. Causes the user to be infected with a grouper plague. There were 3 types of drugs here. Drugs that temporarily increased attributes, drugs that spread diseases, and drugs that permanently increased attributes were very rare. There were only the Death Virus Enhancer and the Falcon Potion, which increased DX. Some of the drugs can only be used once, but some can be used repeatedly. The Falcon Potion is the former, and the Death Virus Potion is the latter. That was why players were so fond of killing bosses in Laubert's Forbidden Zone. Usually, it was a competition between big guilds. You have used the Falcon Potion, plus 3 DX permanently. There were 4 bottles of Death Virus Potion in total. He drank them quickly. His STR, DX, and END all increased by 4. That bottle of high concentration allowed him to awaken a rare talent. Chapter 184. A tanky rare talent that had yet to reach the level of a molding talent allowed Han Xiao to become even more tanky. He remembered that Hela also had a recovery talent, and the effect of extraordinary physique was similar. It also gave him an additional 300 health points. Is it really a good idea for a mechanic like me to become so meaty? Han Xiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. This was forcing him to use his physical body to fight head-on. He felt that if this continued, his image would be destroyed. He only wanted to be a technical mechanic quietly. Melee combat was all brash. I have to find some offensive talents, but these types of molding talents are too rare. Most of the molding talents are defensive or amplification types. As a mechanic, talents that were compatible with his machinery were what he needed the most. Han Xiao had been triggering a talent, Lethal Shot. Although it was not a molding talent, its effect was not bad. It required him to deal a huge amount of damage to a target of at least the same level with a firearm. He had done it nearly 40 times, but enemies of the same level were getting harder and harder to find, so it would take him some time to complete it. As for the temporary enhancement potions, he planned to use some on the rapid injection module of the mechanical suit. He would save the rest and find a chance to sell them for quite a sum. It would be best if he sold them to the players. Among these potions, there was one that was in an incomplete state, and there was only one. Unknown Potion, a semi-finished product of a certain potion. Effect unknown. The color was clear and transparent like water. Usually, unknown things would have unexpected effects. Han Xiao had a feeling that this thing was not simple, but he would not use it when the effect was not clear. The Lewis Research Institution might complete the research in the future. I'll come back then, and I'll know the effect of the finished product. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. If he wanted to make potions, he would have to change his profession to pharmacist or have the knowledge of potions from the mage class. Han Xiao was not interested in making potions, and he felt that making potions was different from making machines. Potions required a strict mixture of materials and a strict production process. The slightest mistake would result in failure, and the channeling process was much easier. In the afternoon, Han Xiao snuck out of Cambus. He still had a mission to intimidate in Maple. The few officials that Bennett wanted him to intimidate all lived in the capital of Maple. The 2 scouts were already on standby in Maple City. The capital of Maple was called Karamochi, which meant Maple Leaf City. The financial group behind the Lewis Research Institution immediately posted a bounty on the dark web. The target was none other than Heisenberg. The bounty included the face Han Xiao had used in the research institution and a short surveillance video of him wearing a mecha and rushing out of the research institution. The Germinal organization soon saw the report. There is no such executive in the organization. The leader was surprised. The organization only had a few hidden intelligence personnel and spies left in other continents. He didn't let anyone rob a civilian research institute. There was only one possibility. This Heisenberg was a fake and deliberately used the Germinal organization as an excuse. In fact, he did not even think that this was framing, because framing the Germinal organization was completely unnecessary. Now that the whole world was targeting them, they did not care about having one more enemy. Ever since the Germinal organization became a dog in the water, every cat and dog thought of them as a toothless tiger, adding insult to injury. Where did this Heisenberg come from? The leader's focus was on the performance of the mecha. He was surprised to find that this mecha was even more advanced than the organization's technology. Even the super soldier experiment that had been making breakthroughs did not reach this level of practicality. If we can get the technology of this mecha, the organization's individual combat ability will improve by leaps and bounds. Which organization developed this new mecha? If it's an enemy, the leader's hand that was holding the corner of the table tightened, leaving clear fingerprints on the steel table. With a serious tone, he ordered, "Let the intelligence network secretly pay attention to the whereabouts of the user of this mecha. I want to know everything about him." Unfortunately, this was the only time Han Zhao's mecha was observed. The Germinal organization's intelligence personnel did not find any more information. It was extremely mysterious. The organization that can develop this kind of mecha must have a huge amount of resources. The leader felt like he had found the tip of the iceberg of a hidden organization. Unfortunately, there were no clues, so he could only leave it as it was. He calmed himself down and asked about another matter. How was the capture of the Inhumans going? The deputy took out the file and said, "So far, 2,103 Inhumans have been captured." Originally, the Inhumans were gathered in a few fixed locations. They were actively avoiding our capture and scattered to other areas. More and more of them are resisting arrest, and our operations are being hindered. Mr. Cyberlos has a new theory. Through experiments, it shows that even if these Inhumans are not brainwashed, they will accept all kinds of employment. Their actions are very purposeful. The Inhumans do not understand a lot of common knowledge, and they talk strangely. Also, the Inhumans seem to have a special way of communicating with each other. Some Inhumans know each other. The reason is still under investigation, but there is no more progress. These Inhumans are more like ancient people from the past. That was Mr. Cyberlos's original words. What is the Six Nations' reaction to the Inhumans? The intelligence network shows that the Six Nations have already sent out their own teams to contact the Inhumans. Their attitudes are different. Some are gentle, some are tough. The leader nodded and said in a low voice, "They have stopped their war preparations, but they won't stop forever. Agents from various countries have infiltrated Andrea and found them. I want their every move to be under our surveillance. I have a feeling that the Inhumans will be our chance to win this war." The lens of the sunglasses reflected the appearance of a luxurious villa, and the plainclothes Secret Service personnel patrolling the inside and outside of the manor at all times. The Caucasian old man, who was dressed like a homeless man, pushed his sunglasses up, touched the round hat that covered his bald head, and the mini earpiece hidden in the round hat. Duplex 4-story villa. The entrance of the manor needs to be opened by the internal system. There are 2 standard Secret Service teams patrolling outside the manor, and there is 1 team inside. There are a total of 18 Secret Service members. The target leaves the house at 8 in the morning every day and takes a bulletproof car. The 2 teams follow and protect him. He has his lunch at the restaurant in the government building and returns home between 6 and 7 in the evening. Hannes held his sunglasses and spoke softly into the earpiece. The target lives in the political district of Maple. There are many patrolling police and sentries on the road. If you want to make a move on the road, you better do it quickly. A calm female voice came out of the earpiece. Vernina said lightly, "Then do it on the road. Remind me of those old days." Hannes was dissatisfied. "I'm crazy. I'm already retired, but I still have to work with you guys. Also, it's kidnapping an important official in Maple. Damn it, Jirian. Why did you have to find me? Why couldn't you find Bennett? That guy is still fighting on the front line. Why did you have to find me, a retired old man? Can't you just let me have a few years of peace? Humph, you owe me a favor. Also, I don't like Bennett. That guy left me 3 muzzles 33 years ago." A third person's voice sounded from the headset. Jirian was a burly man, and his voice was like a cannon. "Don't complain all day like a sissy. Did the days of leisurely planting vegetables and waiting for death wear down your toughness and turn you into a spineless sissy? Gentlemen, don't forget that there's a woman here, Vernina said calmly. I'm already 68 years old. You're 1 year older than me. It's not normal for you to still think about fighting and killing. Hannes was speechless. Humph, not even 70 years old. Is that old? Jirian muttered for a while, then changed his tone and said seriously, there will be patrolling police around the corner in 9 seconds. Be careful and hide. Hannes bent his back, and his aura suddenly became inconspicuous. 9 seconds later, a patrolling police officer walked out from the corner. When he saw Hannes, he walked up and yelled, check your ID. Hannes took out a fake ID. The police officer looked at it and handed it back. He yelled, don't stay here. Go away. Hannes walked slowly like an old man. After he turned the corner, his steps became lighter. He whispered, there are too many patrolling police and sentries in this area. If you want to kidnap the target silently, it's best to do it at night. Chapter 185. The weather in the western continent was gloomy and rainy. In the drizzle, Han Xiao finally arrived at the capital of Maple Leaf City, after a few bumpy days on the civilian train. Maple City was large, but sparsely populated. The most obvious thing was that the housing prices were cheap, and the average living space was large enough. Even the middle class could afford to live in a villa, and the income of the civilians in the capital would not be too low. Furthermore, the Maple City government would drive the homeless and the poor to other cities every year, just like cutting off rotten meat regularly. Therefore, Maple City's urban environment was very good. It was quiet and comfortable, and there were many greenery. As usual, it was a legal immigration. Han Xiao followed the address and found a villa at the edge of Maple City. This was a safe house that the Darknet had bought with a fake account and an ID card. The contact was waiting for him inside. The villa was 3 stories high. The door was made of brown glazed wood and was engraved with exquisite relief carvings. Han Xiao grabbed the door knocker and knocked on the secret code. The door creaked open, and the old housekeeper, whose face was more wrinkled than an expired orange, invited him in with an expressionless face. After entering the house, the old housekeeper closed the door and said softly, the 2 guests are waiting in the basement. Han Xiao nodded. He opened a secret door in the closet beside the ladder and walked down the stairs to the basement. This place was not as dimly lit as he had imagined. Instead, there were steel walls, bright lights, and all kinds of equipment and guns. There was even a special lathe and material box in the corner. The 2 contacts were waiting at the meeting table in the middle. They looked at Han Xiao together. He had changed his appearance back to Black Phantom, so he was recognized. The 2 contacts, one was Golden Fox, and the other was a young man. Golden Fox hesitated. Black Phantom? Han Xiao's eyes lit up. It's you. I've seen you before. You seem to have become prettier. Golden Fox was shocked. She touched her face and said to herself, please don't be interested in me. I beg you. The other contact was a young man, about 20 years old. His code name in the Blood Pact Society was Ghostblade. He was the lowest Scorpion-level assassin. It was said that he was a new member who had just joined. He was staring at Han Xiao fiercely with a look of scrutiny and a trace of unwillingness. Ghostblade used to be a trained agent in Raylan, but he had fled before graduation. He was trained in an agent training organization, so he had a natural sense of superiority over these underground assassins. He had joined the Blood Pact Society at about the same time as Han Xiao, but Han Xiao had become a legend in the organization while he was still at the Scorpion level. Ghostblade had always been unconvinced. In terms of seniority, Han Xiao was actually very shallow. However, with his battle record, strength, and Bennett as his backer, he became the trump card of the Blood Pact Society. There were a small number of contract killers in the organization who were not convinced by this. All of them were proud people, and most of them were various figures who had changed careers to become assassins. Even if it was written in black and white, as long as they didn't see it with their own eyes, people would still doubt it. I've heard of your battle record. It is said that you are a legend, but there doesn't seem to be anything special about you. Ghostblade was expressionless. Glancing at Ghostblade, Han Xiao didn't want to argue. Golden Fox hurriedly changed the topic and said, "Cough, there are 5 targets. Raymond Harry, Miller Sinning, Angster Billy, Dark Van City, and Darasi Farimi. They are all Maple officials who oppose the funding. There are guards patrolling the places where they live, and there are also guards when they go out." Golden Fox gave Ghost Blade a look. Ghost Blade snorted, took out a map, and spread it on the conference table. He said, "These are the topographic maps of the target's villa, as well as the security forces and patrol routes nearby." The information was very detailed. Ghost Blade's intelligence gathering ability was strictly based on Raylan's training manual. He had basically found out all the details of this mission. Ghost Blade relied on his secret agent knowledge, and Golden Fox didn't help him at all during the scouting. This made him feel superior to these killers. A professional like him was indeed different from an amateur. Ghost Blade secretly looked at Han Xiao. With such detailed information, he didn't believe that Black Phantom would not be surprised. However, Han Xiao's expression didn't change. It was as if this was a common occurrence. Ghost Blade frowned and was dissatisfied. He said in a deep voice, "I have set up a plan for you. You see these red lines and markings, right? This is the route I have planned. As long as you follow my plan obediently and don't make any mistakes, I can guarantee that you will not fail. You should be able to understand what I have written, right? These are special agent symbols. If you don't understand, I will explain it to you." "No need, I will see it myself." Han Xiao knocked on the table and read the information carefully. He asked casually, "What do you mean?" "Put these documents in the target's house. Put them in a conspicuous place. Make sure that the target can see them. There is some evidence that is unfavorable to them. As long as they see that we can silently put things in their house, they will know that their lives are in danger. It is a threat, but also a leeway," Golden Fox said. "I'm going to sneak in. What are you guys going to do?" Ghost Blade snorted. "I'm only in charge of scouting and providing information. The actual operation is your job as the ace. Don't even think about asking for my help." Golden Fox glared at Ghost Blade and said, "If you need my help, I am fine with it." "Forget it. There is no need." Han Xiao waved his hand. "This mission is quite simple. I can do it alone. According to my plan, the mission is indeed not difficult." Ghost Blade nodded lightly. He had actually left some information in the information. It would not affect the mission, but it would bring some small challenges to the operators. He wanted to test Black Phantom. Although Black Phantom was the ace of the organization, unless he passed his test, he would still maintain a wait-and-see attitude toward Black Phantom. However, Han Xiao looked at the plan, shook his head, and said, "This plan is too complicated. I have my own way." Ghost Blade was displeased. "This is the plan I came up with based on all the information. You only looked at it for a few minutes, and you have a better way?" "This mission is not challenging for me," Han Xiao said. "Nonsense." Ghost Blade snorted and walked away. Ghost Blade was very displeased that Black Phantom did not follow his plan. He was a professional, and his plan was flawless. This Black Phantom did not know what was good for him. If he does not follow my plan, there will definitely be an accident, Ghost Blade thought. He even wanted to see Black Phantom fail the mission. He felt that if Black Phantom did not follow his plan, he would be messing around. It would be best if Black Phantom did not just talk about it and use his plan when the time came. Han Xiao looked at his watch. "I will act tonight. You just wait." The two contacts did not participate in the official operation. Han Xiao did not need logistical intelligence personnel, so everything was done independently. There was no need for communication through the earpiece. Acting right after arriving? Too impulsive. Ghost Blade shook his head. He did not think much of it. He felt that this mission was most likely going to end in failure. Not listening to the advice of a professional was basically a failure. Soon it was nighttime. Dark clouds covered the moon. Han Xiao changed into a black outfit. He had the things he did not need in the safe house. He personally checked the circuit and reset the password to prevent others from opening it. He took the necessary equipment and set off. The streets of Maple were very quiet at night. The night breeze blew through the trees, and the rustling of the trees made people feel peaceful. There was a fresh fragrance in the air. It was the smell of the roadside flower beds. There were not many people on the streets. Most of them were patrolling police officers. It seemed to faintly indicate the country's high-pressure policy. The public security was not as peaceful as it seemed. Walking through the quiet streets, he came to the political district of the city. There were more patrolling police officers on the streets. Han Xiao hid in the shadows of the alley and observed, waiting quietly. About 10 minutes later, a patrolling police officer walked over. "This is B3248. Everything is normal." The patrolling police officer said something into the walkie-talkie. He walked past the alley and subconsciously looked into the dark alley. A pair of arms suddenly stretched out and dragged him into the darkness. His anxious cries only lasted half a sentence before coming to an abrupt stop. Chapter 186. Han Xiao gave the patrol officer a sleeping pill and hid it in a trash can in the alley. He would probably only be found the next morning. The sleeping pill was not a normal product on the market, but a secret formula created by Golden Fox. According to her description, it could make a 3-meter-tall, short-haired elephant fall asleep in 10 seconds. As for why Golden Fox used an elephant as an experiment, Han Xiao was also puzzled. Golden Fox took the initiative to provide the sleeping pill as a gesture of goodwill, but Han Xiao felt that the atmosphere between him and Golden Fox was very strange. When their eyes met, it was as if a spark had been ignited. Golden Fox was like a frightened little animal, and she quickly looked away, not daring to look at Han Xiao. If it wasn't for the fact that he had left a bad first impression on the Golden Fox back then, he would have thought that the Golden Fox was interested in him. In fact, she was just afraid of him. Han Xiao diluted the potion, and the effect was not that strong. Normal people would wake up after about 10 hours of sleep. He tried it himself, and it said that one would be immune to it as long as one's endurance was above 45. Han Xiao's endurance was now close to 90. The average endurance of an LV-55 mechanic was around 70. Han Xiao's endurance was not much higher than the average, but his HP was more than half that of a mechanic of the same level. With a bonus from elementary strength and life and extraordinary physique, Han Xiao's HP was around 3,400. Combined with the magnetically controlled retractable armor and Viper, which were unique to the mechanic class, he was already at the level of a boss of the same level. However, Han Xiao decided to use the traditional method of infiltration this time. After all, this was the capital of Maple, and he was afraid that he would be in trouble if he went too far. He had no choice but to temporarily abandon Master Kong and Master AI's path of invincibility and become Baldhead 47. Wearing a police uniform, Han Xiao swaggered to his first target, Miller Senning's villa. Beside the road, there were trees and flower beds. The shadows of the trees danced in the wind, and the light from the street lamps was cut into small light curtains by the swaying branches, creating mottled shadows. Using the Night Stalker skill, Han Xiao entered the stealth state and walked around the villa, observing the cameras on the streets. There are a total of 3 cameras monitoring the villa from 3 directions. They will automatically turn and move at the same speed. It seems to form a blind spot. The duration is very short. Han Xiao had discovered an opportunity, but this was not indicated in the report. It was unknown whether Ghost Blade had not discovered it or had deliberately not written it. If you want to sneak in, you have to solve the problem of the cameras first. Every 5 minutes, there would be a 2-second blind spot in the intersecting surveillance field of vision. This made things much simpler. There was no need to go through so much trouble to dismantle the wires of the cameras and invade the surveillance network. As long as they were fast enough and jumped into the villa, they could avoid being discovered by the surveillance cameras, or rather, prolong the time they would be discovered. This was because the entire city surveillance system was not monitored 24 hours a day. If a patrol officer suddenly disappeared from the surveillance system, it would not be immediately discovered unless it was coincidentally seen by the person monitoring it. He didn't ask for a perfect infiltration without leaving any clues. All he wanted was to get through the night and complete the mission smoothly. There were Secret Service members guarding the villa both inside and outside the villa. There were verification devices at the entrance and exit, and there were electric railings on the walls. Other than that, everything was no different from a normal house. The Secret Service members outside were easy to deal with as long as they were distracted. However, there were also people guarding the villa, so it was impossible to pinpoint the location with the naked eye. Han Xiao had an idea. He took out a pair of sunglasses and put them on. They looked like normal sunglasses, but they were a portable version that used electromagnetic scanning. He pressed a small switch on the leg of the glasses, and he could see through the walls to see the biological signs inside the villa. He could see blurry human figures, which was enough to pinpoint the location. However, it was weird to wear sunglasses at night. It reminded him of the song Broken Intestines in Kung Fu Hustle. The officials of Maple were protected 24 hours a day, as if they were afraid of being attacked on the streets. It was not hard to imagine how unpopular they were. The other 5 nations did not have such measures, so the air in Maple was filled with pressure. The situation of each nation was different, and the protection of the officials in Maple was not something that had existed since the beginning. It was similar to when the government established the policy of evicting the lower-class citizens in the capital. It came from an incident that was well known in Maple, but kept a secret, the Ulrich incident. It happened in the 11th year of the new era of the Six Nations. Han Xiao had seen this history on the timeline of events on the Darknet. There were many places in the history of each civilization and galaxy that could be dug deeper. As for Maple, whether it was in his previous life or now, Han Xiao did not have a deep understanding of it. Since he was in the middle of the mission, these thoughts only flashed through his mind. He continued to think about how to infiltrate the villa. The Secret Service members patrolled around the villa with a warning look. Han Xiao threw down a spider detector and observed from a hidden corner. It was not convenient for him to pass by the villa too many times, as it would only alert the guards. Soon, he found an opportunity. Taking advantage of the moment when the cameras and the Secret Service personnel were in a blind spot, he activated his electromagnetic hover boots and quietly slid over the wall. He targeted a tree in the manner and landed behind it. His movements were smooth and fluid. Although he tried to control his strength, the leaves still shook slightly. There was a Secret Service member hiding under the tree. He was very alert when he felt the vibration and immediately looked up. Han Xiao had a plan when he jumped in, so he did not stop. When the Secret Service member squinted and observed carefully, his over 100 points of dexterity made him as fast as a ghost. He walked out from behind the tree and covered the Secret Service member's mouth. He dragged the Secret Service member behind the tree and injected him with a syringe. The Secret Service member was quiet before he even started to struggle. The sound was not loud, but there was still a Secret Service member standing guard not far away. He saw his partner leave his post from the corner of his eye, but he did not see Han Xiao's ghost-like speed clearly. Siri. The Secret Service member called his partner's name in a low voice and walked over. Not good. Han Xiao knew this was bad. Traditional infiltration was about timing, which made him nervous all the time. He changed his mind and immediately had a solution. He quickly scanned the face of the Secret Service member he had knocked out and changed his face. He showed his head from behind the tree and shook his head to show that he was okay. What are you doing behind the tree? The Secret Service member saw his partner's face and relaxed slightly. He continued to approach, wanting to go around the tree to see what was going on. Han Xiao turned his palm and a small pistol appeared. He quietly shot the syringe and hit the Secret Service member's neck. The Secret Service member staggered and was about to fall asleep. Han Xiao hurriedly moved to support him and carefully dragged him behind a tree. There were 4 sentry posts in the villa, and they all had walkie-talkies to communicate with each other. It would not take a few seconds for the others to realize that 2 of their partners were missing. I can only knock out all the sentry posts. The Secret Service members outside and inside the villa were different teams. They would only talk to each other once in a while to confirm the situation. This way, he could delay them for half an hour to an hour. He felt that there was enough time for him to act. Han Xiao moved quickly and stealthily like a cat. The remaining 2 sentry posts were quickly knocked out by him. They were just well-trained elites and could not resist at all. After confirming that the eyes were removed, Han Xiao jumped into the villa through the window and turned on the electromagnetic scanning glasses. The structure of the villa was in full view. The bald official was sleeping in a master bedroom with his young and beautiful wife. There was also a housekeeper sleeping in another room. There were only 3 people in the huge house. Han Xiao groped his way to the study. He took out the evidence files collected by the dark net and placed them in a conspicuous place on the table. That was one of his goals. There is no time to lose. I still have some time before Maple discovers that someone has infiltrated. I have to hurry. Han Xiao slipped out of the villa at the right time. The Secret Service members standing guard outside were still doing their duty and did not know what was going on inside. Then, Han Xiao ran to the mansions of 3 more targets. The security environment was different. With level 55 perception, the intelligence provided by Golden Fox and Ghostblade, as well as equipment such as the face simulator and the hover boots, the operation was daunting but not dangerous. When it came to the 3rd target, there was a small accident. While Han Xiao was putting away the documents in the study, the target woke up shakily and wanted to walk past the study. Han Xiao hurriedly hid behind a floor lamp in the corner. If one did not look closely, it was easy to mistake a floor lamp for a human figure, and people would subconsciously ignore it. This was a bold hiding spot, and Han Xiao felt that this quick thinking was very good. Unfortunately, the ending was completely different from what he had expected. Can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, walking in the dark corridor with panic? Passing by the study and mistaking the floor lamp for a human, you would be even more nervous. Just as you were about to take a closer look and comfort yourself that you were just scaring yourself, you realized that there was really an uninvited guest standing behind the lamp. The target was an old man. He clutched his chest and fell straight down. You have killed Dark Van Van City, level 5. You have received 1 EXP. The target was actually scared to death, dead. F***CK. How is that possible? Han Xiao was dumbfounded. I do not want to kill anyone. You're suffering from a heart attack. I'm innocent. Hey, old man, wake up. You still have a lot of youth. How can you die like this? Han Xiao grabbed the old man's shoulder and shook him, almost breaking the old man's bones. I accidentally killed the mission target. What should I do? Han Xiao had a headache. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. He had a new idea. Wait a minute. The main purpose of this mission is to reduce the number of officials who are against funding. If all of them die, no one will object. Achoo. Bennett, who was far away in the southern continent, sneezed and suddenly had a bad feeling. Chapter 187. One of the targets was dead, but the mission didn't fail, which meant that killing was allowed. This mission is insane. Han Xiao shook his head, picked up the old man's body, and stuffed it into the cabinet. He thought, I'll just hide as long as I can. He didn't want to kill. The targets were all officials of a certain status. If he killed all of them, Maple would be in chaos. There was no profit, only risk. It's just a dead official. Guess who will be blamed for it? There's only one target left, Durasi Farimi. This official had the highest status among the 5 targets. The manor was bigger, and the security was tighter. Han Xiao followed the order and sneaked into the manor through a blind spot. He hid in the shadows and darkness, and the sentries had nowhere to hide. Sneaking behind a Secret Service member, Han Xiao injected a needle into his neck and dragged him behind the flower bed. He quickly changed his clothes and face and looked at his ID. This time, the unlucky guy was called Angston. Durasi's manor was relatively large. Han Xiao was about to go around the back of the villa and enter through the window when the villa suddenly lit up. An order from the higher-ups came from the walkie-talkie. Everyone, gather and escort the target to the government building. All the Secret Service members gathered. This time, Han Xiao was in a passive position. He replaced Angston's position and didn't want to be exposed. He had to continue playing this role, so he had to gather in front of the villa with the Secret Service team. The team leader knocked on the door and said loudly, Mr. Durasi, we found unconscious special agents in the other officials' residences. Enemies have sneaked in. Your current situation is not safe. Please move to the government building with us immediately to take refuge together. Han Xiao was suddenly enlightened. The people he had knocked out in the previous targets had been discovered, It was about time. Maple had reacted. Too bad. If I had waited a little longer, I could have completed the last target. Han Xiao was helpless. He could only adapt to the situation and hope that the old man who was hidden in the cabinet would be discovered later. The villa's glazed wooden door opened, and a tall old man in a fitting suit walked out. The wrinkles on his face were chiseled, and he looked cold and indifferent. His white hair was neatly combed. The Secret Service escorted Darasi to the car parked at the gate. There were a total of 4 cars. Darasi's car was in the middle, and the other 3 escort cars surrounded it in a triangle formation. Han Xiao, who was disguised as a special service member, was arranged to sit in the escort car on the right rear. As the group set off, the best choice was to wait and see. I can sneak away on the way and complete the final mission. Just as he was thinking about this, a few fist-sized black shadows suddenly shot towards the convoy from outside the car window. Han Xiao immediately recognized that they were the shape of howitzers. Boom! A few grenades accurately landed on the chassis of the 3 escort vehicles and exploded. The power of the grenades exceeded the attack power that they should have. It was like a small rocket. The blazing flames lit up the night sky, and the 3 escort vehicles were flipped in the air. In the end, all 4 wheels were facing the sky, and the flames were raging. Someone is attacking the convoy. The driver of Darasi's car hurriedly stepped on the accelerator, wanting to speed up and escape. A few bullets shot out in the dark and blew up the tires. The car spun and crashed into the side of the road. 4 special service members with dusty faces hurriedly got out of the car. Before they could raise their guns, they were hit in the chest by sniper bullets from above. None missed, and they fell to the ground with serious injuries. All the guards have been taken care of, Hannes said through the walkie-talkie. Red Maple's backup will take at least 3 minutes to arrive. We have plenty of time. Vernina, evacuate with the target. In the shadow of the intersection between the street lights and the darkness, a woman's silhouette gradually became clearer. Vernina appeared with a grenade launcher. She had short blonde hair, and the crow's feet at the corner of her eyes showed that she was not young. However, she still looked attractive, and her every move exuded the charm of a mature woman. Darasi walked out of the car and glanced at the special service members struggling on the ground. He was still very calm as he asked in a deep voice, "Who are you people?" Vernina slowly approached Darasi, pulled out her pistol, and shot the heavily injured special agents. She took out a tranquilizer syringe from the tactical bag on her belt and said lightly, "Put down the gun, or there will be a hole in your heart." Darasi's expression changed. He looked down and saw a red dot appear where his heart was. He hurriedly let go of the pistol behind his back and looked up to see the red dot on the sniper scope of a tall building in the distance. On a windowsill of the tall building, Hannes was holding a sniper rifle, providing long-range support from above and controlling the situation. "Looks like I have no choice." Darasi's expression was terrible. He raised his hands and walked obediently to Vernina. Bang! At this moment, the door of an overturned car on fire flew out. A pair of big hands grabbed the door frame and tore it apart amidst the ear-piercing sound of tearing metal. Han Xiao walked out with his neck twisted. His entire body hurt from the collision, and he grimaced. He was blown away by a grenade for no reason, so he was in a terrible mood. "There's still one alive?" Vernina's expression did not change. She turned around and fired a shot. Han Xiao reacted quickly. He put on the magnetically controlled retractable armor and rammed into the grenade head-on. The flames swallowed him whole. Vernina originally thought that it was enough to get rid of this fish that escaped the net. After the smoke and dust dissipated, she found that Han Xiao was unharmed and staring at her coldly. That gaze made her heart skip a beat. In Vernina's long battle life, she had fought with all kinds of powerful enemies and developed a sharp intuition. She could quickly discern the enemy's strength level. With just one look, she could tell that this was the gaze of a predator. Han Xiao's expression was terrible. He saw the information on the interface. The enemy's name was Vernina. She was a level 60 gunner who had reached the limit level in version 1.0. She was at the pinnacle level in Blue Star. Other than Bennett, This was the second highest level blue star character that Han Xiao had seen. However, she did not have as many molding talents as Bennett. Vernina. This name sounds familiar. Han Xiao had a vague impression of this name. That had to be a reason why someone of this level attacked a Maple official. Han Xiao was accidentally involved. He did not want to be a busybody. He could only admit that he was unlucky. Just as he turned around and was about to leave the scene with his hover boots, Vernina fired again. Clang! A grenade hit the back of Han Xiao's head and exploded on the armor. It pushed him forward a few steps. Han Xiao's feet suddenly stopped. The next moment, the armor covered his entire body. He turned around and charged toward Vernina. He threw out his retractable machete and stabbed. The electromagnetic hover boots were at full power. His charging speed was like a bullet. Vernina hurriedly raised the grenade launcher as a shield. Kill! The black blade passed through the grenade launcher, cut through the precise structure of the gun, and stabbed into Vernina's abdomen. Blood dripped onto the ground. Han Xiao let go of the blade and punched toward Vernina's temple with his fist. Vernina hurriedly raised her forearm to block. The moment the fist collided with her arm bone, she felt an irresistible force hit her head through her forearm. Then, she felt pain in her abdomen. Han Xiao had kicked her. You forced me to attack. Han Xiao clenched his teeth. His eyes were about to spit fire. I didn't want to talk to you, and you took advantage of me. After being beaten up so many times, he was furious. Vernina was shocked after being hit twice. She thought that this special agent was just a fish that escaped the net. She did not expect him to be a prehistoric shark. She was a legendary figure from the old era, but she was suppressed by a nameless enemy? The other party had shown signs of escaping just now. He did not seem to want to continue the fight, but he was provoked by her 2 shots. Vernina regretted it in her heart. She had provoked a strong enemy in a moment of carelessness. She could not be blamed for that, because the intelligence showed that Daraci's guards were all normal people. She would never have guessed that one of them had been switched and was unlucky enough to meet Han Xiao. He's not a martial artist, and he doesn't seem to have any special abilities. He's actually a mechanic? Vernina was shocked. She quickly distanced herself. The gun in her hands was very powerful, and her firepower was fierce. The mag of the past had to admit defeat in front of her. Han Xiao did not intend to shoot at her. He did not bring a sniper rifle this time. He only had 2 Berserk Eagles and some small machines. He chose to use the close combat strategy. He used the electromagnetic hover boots to close the gap between him and Vernina's agility, and then used his strength to suppress her. Gunners had high agility, and Han Xiao had the advantage in terms of strength. Chapter 188. The interface showed that Hannes was also LV-60. Han Xiao felt that things were not as simple as they seemed. 2 people who had reached the peak of version 1.0 appear at the same time, so something big must have happened. He might even be able to trigger a hidden quest. Furthermore, the names of these 2 people were very familiar, but he could not recall them immediately. In fact, Han Xiao did not want to cause any more trouble. He only wanted to complete the mission given to him by Bennett properly. However, he was dragged into this by accident, and it was not his style to not fight back. Han Xiao dragged the battle into melee range. Although Vernina was a cannon master, her agent subclass level was very high, and she also had melee abilities. The 2 of them exchanged blows, and Han Xiao had the upper hand with his strength. He never went easy on his opponent because of their identity, age, or gender. Vernina suffered quite a bit. The 2 of them were far stronger than normal people, and their strength was enough to break bricks and penetrate iron plates. The environment was destroyed, and the streets were full of potholes. There was even an overturned car that Han Xiao kicked into a tree. The surroundings were a mess. Daraci retreated to the side. Because of the presence of the sniper, he did not dare to take the opportunity to escape. He watched the 2 supers fight in shock. Daraci was very confused. Why did he not know that there was such a powerful super hidden among his guards? Was it a secret arrangement by the Special Task Force? A super of this level was more than enough to protect the highest leader. How could he be treated better than the highest leader? However, now, Darasi could only hope that this hidden super would defeat the attacker. He was very nervous. Han Xiao was like a gangrene attached to the bone, and Vernina could not pull away at all. The passing time made her very anxious. This special task force is ridiculously strong. Maple's backup will be here soon. I'm being held back. Hannes, help me quickly. He's too close to you, Hannes said. He's very fast. There's a 50% chance of hitting you. Vernina was troubled. This mission should have been a success, but Han Xiao had messed up the entire plan. The intelligence clearly showed that Darasi's guards were all normal people. But where did this person come from? Hannes immediately made a decision. Retreat. However, at this time, sirens sounded and police cars and special forces vehicles flew in from the distance. The sound of rotors sounded in the sky, and 2 helicopters circled in the sky, surrounding the 2 people fighting in the field. Maple's reinforcements arrived at the scene. It had only been 3 to 4 minutes since Darasi was attacked. They lived up to their name. Vernina gritted her teeth and took 2 punches with her back. She used the force of the punches to run and crashed into the encirclement. The people of Red Maple opened fire, and the dense gunfire formed a barrage of bullets. Dodging left and right, she was amazingly agile. She found a safe route in the dense barrage of bullets. Occasionally, stray bullets would hit her, but they could only cause single-digit damage. Ordinary people using ordinary guns were almost no threat to people of her level. Seeing that Vernina was about to break out of the encirclement, Han Xiao grabbed a heavy sniper rifle from a SWAT soldier, activated Flaming Will, and shot Vernina's shoulder. Blood spurted out. She staggered, then accelerated and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of blood on the ground. Part of the troops chased after her. Han Xiao threw away his gun and let out a sigh of relief. As the saying went, don't chase a cornered enemy. Don't chase a cornered enemy. There was no benefit in chasing them. It was enough to injure them, but they couldn't kill them. In the eyes of the people of Red Maple, I'm one of them now. But if I run away recklessly, I might be caught too. Han Xiao's eyes flashed. He stayed at the scene, waiting for the shocked police to stop paying attention to him. Then, he would find a chance to escape. More troops arrived and cleaned up the scene. Darasi was surrounded, and a doctor checked if he was injured. From the conversation with the police, Han Xiao learned that Vernina and Hannes had both escaped, which was within his expectations. Just as he was resting beside the car, a senior officer walked up to him and said with a deep voice, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Danny. You did well to protect Mr. Darasi's safety and didn't let the kidnapper succeed. Han Xiao continued his act and pretended to be calm. It's my duty. Lieutenant Colonel Danny looked at the bumpy streets, and a hint of surprise flashed across his face. He said, Angston, you joined the Army 11 years ago. 2 years later, you were selected as a Special Forces soldier and trained for 3 years. You carried out 2 military operations before you were expelled from the Special Forces due to disciplinary issues and transferred to the Special Task Force to protect officers. Your resume is very ordinary, and you have never displayed the strength of a superhuman. Han Xiao shrugged. People always change. Lieutenant Colonel Danny frowned. This was a very serious matter. This Angston had been hiding his strength, and his intentions were suspicious. He had to be thoroughly investigated, but now was not a good time. At this time, Darasi approached and praised. Well done. You saved me. I'll inform your leader and reward you. With the strength that Han Xiao had shown, Darasi knew that he had to lower his status. Such a strong super was not like other ordinary soldiers who could be ordered around. Han Xiao sized Darasi up and thought, what secret does this old official have to be targeted by 2 LV-60 people? What is the identity of the attacker? After expressing his gratitude, Darasi looked at Lieutenant Colonel Danny with a serious expression. The Intelligence Division is investigating. Oh, they found it. Lieutenant Colonel Danny took the computer from his deputy, looked at it, and was stunned. Vernina, former Raylan agent, retired. She was active in the battlefield of the old era and was one of the shining legends of that era. She carried out hundreds of high-risk missions, including protection, assassination, infiltration, overthrowing the government, and so on. She has disappeared for decades and has reappeared today. Her threat level is the highest. Han Xiaoxin thought. If it was related to a legendary figure of the old era, it would more or less be related to Bennett. Ah, I remember now. Han Xiao suddenly remembered where Vernina and Hannes had appeared. The players had come into contact with these two names around the middle of version 1.0, and the way they appeared was more like an Easter egg. In the biggest shelter that Bennett had been in his previous life, there was a small hill with 3 tombstones. 2 of the tombstones were carved with the names of these 2 people. That's right, when the players came into contact with them, they were already dead. Bennett would occasionally stop in front of the 3 tombstones. If asked, Bennett would sigh and say that his friends and comrades were buried there, and they were all respectable people. From Bennett's words, the players knew that these 3 people were Bennett's old friends. They did not know anything else. Some players tried to trigger the mission, but did not get anything. It seemed to be an Easter egg. However, the 2 people on the tombstones were still alive. Han Xiao felt that there was definitely a hidden storyline. Why would 2 LV-60 people from Bennett's generation want to deal with a Maple official? In the original storyline, why did they die? Who killed them? Lieutenant Colonel Danny suddenly raised his head and looked at Han Xiao. His eyes were filled with shock. This unknown guy had actually beaten back a legend of an era. He was even stronger than he had imagined. The Special Task Force was hiding such a terrifying person, and the military did not notice. I must investigate this thoroughly. Lieutenant Colonel Danny was in a serious mood. With this in mind, Lieutenant Colonel Danny ordered the people to clean up the battlefield. However, in the blink of an eye, Han Xiao disappeared right under his nose. While the people around him were cleaning up the battlefield and were distracted, he quietly activated the Night Stalker ability, walked to the side, and decisively changed his face and slipped away. His level was much higher than the people present. Once he entered stealth mode, he was almost undetectable. Of course, if he wandered around in front of others, he would still be seen. After Lieutenant Colonel Danny realized this, he quickly asked the people around him. No one saw how Angus left. He was stunned. In that moment of distraction, Angus was gone. He ordered people to search nearby, but naturally, they found nothing. Lieutenant Colonel Danny was not confused for long. Someone found the real Angus lying in the garden of Daraci's mansion. Only then did he know that this Angus was a fake. This method was used by the mysterious person who had sneaked into the mansions of other officials. The identity of the attacker has been confirmed. Then who is this intruder? Lieutenant Colonel Danny's heart was heavy. The intruder's strength was comparable to Vernina's. Which force did this monster belong to? Why did this ace-level combat power appear in the capital tonight? After knowing the truth, Daraci was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. After all this time, it turned out that the person protecting him was also an enemy who had been following him. The 2 groups of enemies actually fought each other. It was like walking on the edge of hell, and in the end, he was safe and sound. Chapter 189. Deterrence completed. You have received 120,000 EXP, plus 500 Blood Pack Society favorability. Current relationship. Respected 4450/6000. The Blood Pack Society was a subordinate force of the Darknet. Favorability could affect the relationship with the Darknet, just like how Han Zhao's favorability with Division 13 affected Star Dragon's attitude toward him. According to Han Zhao's estimation, he still needed an opportunity to activate the Darknet, such as a mission. The higher the favorability of the subordinate force, the more it would affect the initial favorability of the superior force. This mission is not difficult. There are probably hidden benefits, like increasing Bennett's favorability. Han Xiao nodded. When he returned to the southern continent, he would have a place in the shelter's main mission. He was looking forward to it. After a busy night, Daraci finally returned home under the protection of the new bodyguards. He could not hide his fatigue. When he passed by the study, he realized that the desk lamp was on. Just as he was about to turn it off, he saw a document on the table that he had never seen before. Daraci's expression changed. He hesitated for a few seconds and slowly flipped through the document. The document was filled with evidence of his secret profits and his dark past. It was signed by the Darknet. The Darknet sends our sincere greetings to you. We wish you good health. Daraci's face turned green. He immediately understood why the Darknet did this. It was only a matter of material support. He did not expect the Darknet to be able to find out about his opposition. He slammed the document on the table and gritted his teeth. This is too much. This is extortion. A bunch of robbers. If they could sneak into his house, it meant that they could also take his life. That person was from the Darknet. Everything that happened tonight was orchestrated by the Darknet. However, he did not dare to take revenge. If this information fell into the hands of his enemy, his political career would be over. He would definitely be abandoned by his backer. Without the protection of his political party, he would definitely be eliminated. As an official, he knew Maple style the best. Daraci immediately burned the document and collapsed on the chair as if his bones had been removed. Staring at the document that had turned into ashes in the fireplace, he was silent for a long time. This can't be made public. I'm not the only official who opposes funding the Darknet. The others won't be stupid enough to reveal it. Daraci's eyes flickered. If everyone kept their mouths shut, this matter could be kept under wraps. No one would know, and it would become a secret between them. As long as they agreed to the material aid, the Darknet would not do anything else. However, things were always unexpected. Of the 5 officials who were invaded, one was found dead, and his corpse was hidden in a cabinet. This immediately attracted a higher level of attention. The Secret Service personnel sealed off the official's mansion and thoroughly investigated the house. Han Xiao was scared to death at the time, so he wouldn't put up a file. Naturally, the intelligence agency didn't find anything. However, they had their own guesses. Out of the 5 people involved, only one had died. Why were the other 4 fine? What was the infiltrator's motive? The intelligence agency asked Daraci and the other 3 if they had noticed anything unusual, but they all denied it. But at the same time, the intelligence agency found that the 5 parties had something in common. Not long ago, they had all opposed the proposal to fund the Darknet. The Darknet was the most suspicious. The infiltrator was able to fight with the legends of the old era and disappear in the blink of an eye. Red Maple's intelligence agency immediately locked onto the most suspicious target, the Darknet's Black Phantom. If that was the case, the 4 of them must have lied. But why was the dead official killed? The doctor checked the cause of death and found that the dead official did not have any external or internal injuries. The cause of death was actually a myocardial infarction due to high adrenaline secretion. In short, he was scared to death. What did the dead official see when he was alive? Why was he scared to death? Did he see a ghost? What did Black Phantom do? Thinking about it, Red Maple's intelligence agent was terrified. What a terrifying assassination method. It's natural, not leaving any traces. God-level disguise. Unbelievable. The intelligence agent quickly recorded it down. Everyone in the underground world knew how difficult it was to deal with Black Phantom. It was almost impossible to find him. Red Maple's intelligence agency could only do their best and leave the rest to fate. They were mentally prepared for futility. Vernina was half naked. She sat in the chair with her hands on the back of the chair and her chin on the back of her hands. Hannes was treating the wound on her shoulder behind her back. Beside him were cotton balls that were soaked in blood. Ding dong. Hannes finally removed the bullet that was embedded in the flesh and threw it on the plate. The pain made Vernina frown. She sighed and said, "I can't believe I failed such a simple mission. How embarrassing." While doing the stitches, Hannes said without raising his head, "Jirian's information is wrong. It's all his fault." Hearing that, Jirian threw the computer on the table. The page was the file of the Secret Service personnel around Daraci. He scolded, "Bullsh asterisk T. This is all the information I managed to get from Red Maple's archives. That strong enemy's name is Angston. Look at his resume. He's just a normal person. Who knew he hid so well?" Vernina put on her white sweater and combed her blonde hair. She said calmly, "With this failure, it won't be easy to kidnap the next target." That angstin is not easy to deal with. Jirian looked at the computer and was suddenly overjoyed. He said, "No, I have new information. The one we fought was a fake. He's not from Red Maple." "Who?" Hannes was surprised. "Seems like someone from the Darknet." Jirian typed on the keyboard and stole the information. "Darknet. Only Bennett and the other two old guys are strong. They're not the ones I fought. Does the Darknet have new blood? I haven't been paying attention to the underground for a while." Vernina was slightly surprised. She touched her shoulder. "He even left a bullet hole in me. He's not someone to mess with. We don't have any conflicts with him. We're just unlucky," Jirian scolded. "We just had to meet someone strong. Bennett really found a treasure. Asking directly is the fastest way." Hannes took out his phone. He had Bennett's number. The call went through. "Hannes? I didn't expect you to call me. Didn't you retire?" Bennett's voice sounded. Jirian said he needed my help with something important. "I owe him a favor anyway. Let's not talk about this. I have something to ask you. Did you send someone to Red Maple to do something?" Hannes explained everything. Bennett didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What a coincidence. I don't know if he's unlucky or you guys are unlucky. Who is he?" Chapter 190. The fight was an accident. You know me, I won't take revenge. Hannes shook his head. "Let me guess. He's the Black Phantom who's been very active recently. He's the only capable one among the newcomers in your organization." Hannes was stunned. "So it's the Black Phantom. Even though I'm retired and don't pay attention to the newcomers, someone has mentioned his name to me. This guy is not simple. Bennett, you've gained a capable helper this time." Bennett smiled but didn't say anything. Just like what Hannes said, he also felt that he had found a treasure. When he first met the Black Phantom, his code name was still Mr. Black, and he was only a Scorpion-level assassin. Although his strength was not bad, he was still far from the top level. He seemed to be his fan and even gave him gifts that he liked. Therefore, Bennett gave him some guidance. At that time, it was just a casual thing to do, and he didn't pay much attention to Han Xiao. However, in just a few months, Han Xiao had shocked the underground world with his battle results and jumped to the top 10 of the assassin list, becoming the well-deserved trump card of the Blood Pact Society. Bennett was very shocked by Han Xiao's rapid growth. Although they hadn't fought, Bennett could faintly feel that the gap between him and Han Xiao was shrinking rapidly. With the potential of the Black Phantom, he would grow into a capable helper sooner or later, and he would not be alone. The cooperation between the Black Phantom and the Darknet was in the honeymoon period, so Bennett attached great importance to him. "Since he's your man, I want him to do something for us," Hannes said. Bennett rejected. "The Black Phantom is not my subordinate, so I can't order him around. The most I can do is ask for his opinion." Hannes pondered. "Okay, I hope to talk to him personally. That's not a problem." The call ended. Vernina was surprised. "You want a stranger to join? Although he's strong, we know nothing about him." "He's very strong. What's wrong with having one more helper? Plus, we don't need to keep what we're going to do a secret." Jirian was the initiator of the operation, and he agreed with Hannes' decision. He snorted and said, "What we're going to unearth is a big secret. The three of us don't have enough people. I have collected information for many years before I found a clue. No matter what, we have to figure it out." Hannes said earnestly, "You'll die of curiosity sooner or later." At dawn, Han Xiao returned to the Darknet safe house. Golden Fox and Ghost Blade had not slept all night. Seeing him return, Golden Fox breathed a sigh of relief. "The mission is complete?" Ghost Blade asked suspiciously. "Did you follow my plan?" "Your plan is not feasible." Han Xiao shook his head and briefly explained the difficulties he had encountered during his infiltration. Ghost Blade's report had missed some details, and these details were extremely important. After Han Xiao's explanation, Ghost Blade realized that there were still errors and loopholes. He thought that he had collected the most detailed information, but these missing details were all pointed out by Han Xiao. He suddenly felt very embarrassed. Ghost Blade was originally very confident in his precise plan, but he realized that if he followed the plan, he would not be able to deal with the unexpected situation of the mission. Han Xiao, on the other hand, reacted on the spot and completed the mission smoothly. He acted as if he had just completed a small task. The difference made Ghost Blade feel very defeated and embarrassed. However, he realized that Han Xiao had no intention of blaming him at all. He did not care about what he thought at all. He was completely ignoring him. Furthermore, the truth was right in his face. Ghost Blade was embarrassed. He felt that Black Phantom did not care about what he thought at all. Provocation or respect, he doesn't care what I think. Ghost Blade was sullen. This feeling was like provoking someone, but that person simply treated him like air. He didn't even look at him. It was like punching cotton, coupled with the difference in status and strength. It made him feel that his behavior of jumping up and down was very laughable. The feeling of being ignored was very uncomfortable. Ghost Blade felt like he was superfluous, and his heart was filled with anxiety. Although Han Xiao did not know the change in Ghost Blade's mentality, he could roughly guess. It was nothing more than arrogance and dissatisfaction. Then, he realized that reality had slapped him in the face and felt embarrassed. Han Xiao's heart was not affected at all. Everyone had their own thoughts, childish and crazy. Everyone had their own thoughts, but as long as they did not act on it, it would always be a secret. Therefore, Han Technician did not care about other people's emotions and thoughts. It was even more meaningless than rimless glasses. Regardless of whether Ghost Blade was dissatisfied with him or admired him, Han Xiao's mentality would not change at all. If one had to summarize the great mechanic Han's code of conduct, there was no better way to describe it than doing things his own way. This was the legendary stable aura. Golden Fox pursed her tender red lips. She had mixed feelings. The first time she saw Black Phantom was during the Manor Guard mission a few months ago. At that time, Black Phantom was just a Scorpion-level assassin, one level lower than her. But a few months later, she was still in the same place, while Black Phantom had risen to become the ace of the Blood Pact Society in a short time. He even had connections with the upper echelons of the Darknet. Golden Fox was very envious of Black Phantom's position, but she knew that she did not have the ability. If she could sacrifice her body to get Black Phantom to back her up, Golden Fox was very willing to do it, but he was not interested in her. But she could understand. What was wrong with a man being a little crazy? Ignoring the conflicted Golden Fox, Han Xiao opened the safe and took out the equipment stored inside. There was no need to stay in Maple any longer after completing the mission. He was about to leave immediately, but his phone rang. It was a call from Bennett. Han Xiao picked up the phone. "I've done what you asked me to do. Although there was a small accident, the wooden target is fine. I know you won't fail. I have another thing for you." Bennett said, "The enemies you met during the mission were actually my friends. You might have heard of them. Hannes and Vernina. They were my contemporaries." Han Xiao pretended to be surprised. "Oh, what a coincidence. You didn't lose? You weren't this strong when I first saw you." Bennett sounded surprised. "Your improvement speed is beyond my imagination. Are you calling to praise me?" Han Xiao said. "Continue, don't stop. I can still hold on." Bennett took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. "Hannes asked me to tell you that he wants to ask for your help. As for the previous conflict, it was just a misunderstanding." "Ask for my help." Han Xiao's eyes flashed, and he understood. The mission had come to him. In a more direct way, he had fulfilled the prerequisites to trigger this mission. He had legendary points, a high enough relationship with the Darknet, and was friends with Bennett. His level had reached the standard, so the hidden mission had come to him. The use of legendary points in relationship with factions sometimes led to NPCs coming to ask players to complete missions. Usually, the difficulty was high, and the rewards were high. The treatment of the mission coming to him was completely different from the treatment of the players who triggered missions everywhere. It was like the difference between asking for help and being asked for help. Therefore, players liked attributes like legendary points, and the game experience was great. "I can help, but I need to know the details." Han Xiao rolled his eyes and added, "Since they're your friends, they're my friends as well. Let's forget about this small conflict." Chapter 191. "Don't forget to return it," Han Xiao joked. Every time Bennett owed him a favor, his favorability would increase. Having a good relationship with one of the main characters of the planet would be of great help. The hidden storyline this time was obviously one of the hidden benefits. One had to know that Bennett's network was huge. Through Bennett alone, he could reach many people, and they were all powerful people. These people all had some good missions that could be triggered. After waiting for a while, Bennett transferred Hannes' call. Katja. After the call was connected, both of them were silent. They could only hear each other's breathing. Hannes spoke first. I'm Hannes. We met once last night. Bennett told me. I heard that you need my help. What's the matter? Han Xiao went straight to the point. It's about a secret that was buried in the dust of history. We found some clues, and I want to dig up this secret. Han Xiao was confused. He did not know what the secret was. You have triggered Blue Star Hidden Main Storyline Grade A Mission, New Era, Origin. Han Xiao's eyes widened. A main storyline mission that no one has triggered before. Blue Star had 3 main storylines. 2 of the main storylines were the war between the Six Nations and the Germinal Organization, and the construction of the sanctuary. The hidden main storyline was discovered by the players, but it was not him who triggered this mission. He had no impression of it at all. This meant that no players had triggered it in his previous life. The hidden main storyline was a special type of mission. It required an opportunity to trigger, and it would affect the main storyline and faction environment, causing changes to the storyline. After playing so many versions in his previous life, Han Xiao had seen the hidden main storyline shared on the forums. Without exception, all of them had special effects on different civilizations and different planets. The first time Hannes and the others appeared in front of the players, they were already dead. No one triggered it. Han Xiaoxin shuddered. Even 2 Blue Star Pinnacle Level 60 characters had died. The difficulty of this mission was probably beyond his expectations. The waters within were unfathomable. The Grade A mission that he had given to deal with the Germinal Organization, Dust of the Fallen Seeds, was a branch of the main mission. The main mission that players received from different factions had different requirements. Naturally, the Six Nations mission was to destroy the Germinal Organization, but the Germinal Organization's mission was the opposite. Han Zhao's mission was special because he did not belong to any faction, but he was an enemy of the Germinal Organization. Therefore, the requirements and details were different, but the general goal was the same. As for this hidden main storyline mission, he knew nothing about it. Origin. Could it be that he wanted to trace the history of the planet? But which event was this traced back to? The unknown made people fearful, but at the same time, it also made people curious. Han Xiao felt a tingling sensation in his bones. This was a feeling of excitement, anticipation, and excitement. He had always been a hardcore player of Galaxy who liked to discover the hidden elements. It was a secret that none of the players in his previous life had discovered. Except, you have accepted New Era, Origin. Plus 10 Hannes favorability, plus 10 Vernina favorability, plus 10 Jirian favorability, plus 10 Jiang Yuan favorability. Han Xiao was stunned. He knew who Jiang Yuan was. He was one of the names of the 3 tombstones. But who was this Jirian? Talk to Hannes and listen to his introduction. The mission requirement was only this for now. Han Xiao was not surprised. This was similar to the cut scene when starting a mission. It's related to our attempt to kidnap Darasi last night. He was personally involved in a secret plan back then, and this secret plan of Maple is one of the clues. Maple is a country with many secrets. When you infiltrated the official's mansion, did you find it strange? Why were these officials protected 24 hours a day, but other countries did not have such a situation? Han Xiao nodded. I know about this. It was the Ulrich attack case many years ago. Yes, the Ulrich attack case. Hannes told Han Xiao about the past. Ulrich was the minister of Maple at that time, and his power was similar to that of the prime minister. He was attacked in his home, and the attackers were not 1 or 2 people. Instead, there were a large number of civilians who obtained weapons from unknown sources. The civilians used gunpowder weapons to raze Ulrich's expensive mansion to the ground. Ulrich himself, his wife, and 3 children around the age of 10 were brutally murdered by the attackers. The whole process was recorded and posted on the internet, shocking the whole country and even the world. The reason was that Ulrich passed a bill that removed some of the original rights and benefits of the civilians and used the funds for a very ridiculous project. In reality, it was Ulrich's way of filling his own pockets. The corruption of the Maple officials was well known throughout the world. However, before the war broke out in the Old Era, Maple was known to be a gentle government. It was not a strong country. When the war broke out in the Old Era, the government implemented a high-pressure austerity policy. Most people expressed their understanding and tolerated the high-pressure management for the continuation of the country. Some even took the initiative to contribute. However, the Maple officials got a taste of the benefits. In addition to the pressure of the country's power after the war, they did not return to the previous relaxed system after the war ended. They continued to squeeze the civilians from all aspects, such as taxes and labor, to replenish the country's power. Therefore, the internal conflicts became more and more intense, and the once gentle social environment was gone forever. The people who did not live as they wished were like springs that were pressed to the bottom. Their hearts were filled with thick, dark clouds, and a thunderstorm was brewing. The bill passed by Ulrich became the fuse that ignited the public's resentment. 31 minutes after Ulrich was attacked, the special forces received the order to kill all civilians who participated in the attack without mercy. The whole country was in an uproar, and this was the beginning of a storm in Maple. If it was before the war in the Old Era, this would be a huge scandal that could cause the collapse of the government. However, in the new era, where power was not regulated, the other 5 countries did not have any intention of interfering. After the war, everyone in the world was in danger. There were no more human rights organizations and power alliances like before. The structure of the world changed, and the balance was broken. The economic system almost collapsed, and resources and military power became the only standard to judge a country's power. Maple felt that the public's opinion was no longer important, and there was no need to serve the people like before. Now was the time for the people to serve the country. Coincidentally, there were many things waiting to be done after the war in the Old Era, so it was a good chance to change the structure of the country. Therefore, they chose a radical approach. The attack that shocked the whole country was a wake-up call for the Maple officials, and they decided to take back the weapons in the hands of the civilians. The Maple officials had never been so united before. They passed 24 strict laws in 2 days with extremely high efficiency. The lightest law was to protect the officials 24/7. There was even a crazy law that required people to be categorized into different classes, and there was a law that required people to be removed from the big cities on a regular basis. Therefore, the trial of the attack took a strange route. The Maple government publicly stated that the attackers were not normal civilians. There was a secret reactionary organization in the country that planned this attack, and the source of their firearms was the best evidence. Chapter 192. Maple's handling of the assault case became the biggest scandal of that year. However, under the suppression of military power, the country structure was reconstructed, and it became a country with a different style. The people were divided into pyramids, but there were no stairs between the social classes. The people could not see hope in life, so they just ate and waited for death. Under such a high-pressure environment, resistance groups were really born. However, this was no longer the era of cold weapons. The level of weapons the country possessed was like a natural barrier that could not be crossed. If there were no external interference, it was almost impossible for there to be an end where the sky had fallen. Furthermore, Red Maple regularly cleaned up threats, and the people went from fear to numbness. The assault case started with a small group of violent mob venting their anger, and ended with more people being punished. It was a perfect example of an ant trying to shake a tree by throwing an egg at a rock. The anger of the common people was not as good as the anger of the emperor. It directly led to the transformation of Maple's social structure into a dictatorship and the stability of the ruling class. The source of change for a peaceful government was war. The pressure of war was too much for the Maple government to handle, so they had no choice but to shift the pressure onto the people. Then things got out of hand, just like how it was easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but hard to go from extravagant to frugal. The people were the foundation of a country, just like the components of a machine. When the country was overloaded, the components would age and break down at an accelerated rate, and the people would lose their youth. However, as long as the components were replaced, the machine could still function. Only the components that could be replaced were damaged, and the abandoned components formed the carriers of the era. Han Xiao was interested. He liked the history and stories of civilizations. After Hannes finished, he thought about it and said, "What does this have to do with the secret you mentioned?" "What I want to say is that war changed a lot. I went through the darkest and most chaotic period. Many people were controlled by ideology, mission, and honor, and became tools of slaughter, but they still thought that it was a noble mission. Only a few people woke up like Bennett, and he became a hero. However, the era that needs heroes is never a good era. There are dirty schemes behind the war, and they want to be buried as a secret forever. However, we want these buried things to see the light of day again." Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. "What good does this do for you?" "No, but the living beings of this world have the right to know what they have been through, and not be kept in the dark, and let these schemes be buried at the bottom of the box by the big countries, and become a secret that will never be opened. I don't think that just because we came into contact with an interstellar civilization, the originally stable situation will shatter overnight. I don't believe that a so-called internal friction theory can start a war. There must be a mastermind behind the scenes adding fuel to the fire." Han Xiao said, "Every country has its secrets. That doesn't seem strange." Hannes smiled. "Since we have come to a new era, the world should have changed. The rules are changing. So why should we follow the common sense of the past? Furthermore, I owe someone a favor. That person has a strong thirst for knowledge. He suggested this operation, so I joined in." From their tone, it seemed that this group of people were anarchists who had died an unnatural death in his previous life. This mission was really deep. Han Xiao did not ask any more questions. After thinking about it, he agreed to join. No matter what their intentions were, at the very least, this was an extremely rare hidden mission. It would be a waste to reject it. Hannes requested to meet. Both parties were in the same city. Following Hannes' directions, Han Xiao found their safe house. Everyone met and sized each other up. Han Xiao glanced at Hannes and Vernina, then looked at Jirian. He was the most curious about this person. While he was sizing up the three of them, Hannes and the others were also staring at him. This was the rumored Black Phantom. "You're pretty good," Vernina said in a calm tone. "Although we just met today, I owe you a favor for coming to help," Hannes said. "There are many people who owe me a favor. Congratulations on joining the family bucket," Han Xiao said casually. "So what do I need to do?" The three of them looked at each other. Jirian took out a stack of files and said, "The clues are hidden in years of information. I spent a long time to find some clues. It's very complicated. We need to work together." Han Xiao browsed through the files, and the interface finally changed. New era. Origin. This mission is a series of chain missions. You can complete the following objectives. The End of the Dying Man. In Xingfeng City, Raylan, find a person named Old Devon and obtain the incomplete copy of Sully 485 file from him. The Key to the Lost. In the ruins of the capital of Shishan Nation in the southern continent, coordinates, find a lost key item, additional item appearance. This is the result of the last research project of Shishan Nation before it was destroyed. Mysterious prisoner. A few decades ago, a Star Dragon intelligence agent was captured and imprisoned by a country. That country has since perished, but the intelligence agent was imprisoned in an unguarded secret prison. No one has ever found him. If you find him or his belongings, the coordinates of the site are in the northern continent. Fellow traveler. A lone traveler who lives in the wilderness and keeps some precious information. According to intelligence, he recently appeared near the Mourner's Valley in the western continent. Be careful. He is not an ordinary person. He was once active in the old era battlefield. Friendly contact is recommended. This is the first round of the mission. As long as you complete one of the objectives, you can complete the mission. The number of objectives completed will determine the requirements of the next round of the mission. First round reward. 350,000 EXP. Additional rewards will be given based on the mission rating. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. This type of mission had a high degree of freedom. It was similar to the Faction series mission, but this main storyline was obviously more complicated. Furthermore, it was a chain mission. The completion of the previous round would affect the requirements of the next round. This kind of mission is usually open-ended. Every round will lead to different clues, leading to different endings. Generally speaking, the more targets completed, the better and the higher the rating. Han Xiao had done this kind of mission before, so there were many possibilities. It was like walking in a maze. To reach the exit, one had to obtain as much information as possible. Hannes and the others' ending in his previous life meant that this mission had a high-risk ending. The mission reward was indeed the main storyline. Just the basic reward for the first round was already 350,000 EXP. Furthermore, the additional rewards were very likely to be random items, skills, or talents. However, the mission was too complicated. The locations were spread across 3 continents, which would consume a lot of his time. As expected of a grade A mission, Han Xiao frowned. He was a little troubled. Let me try. No matter what, he had to accept it first. Jiria nodded. I'll leave these missions to you. The 3 of us have other missions. Hannes and the other 2 were all powerful people from the old era. Their mission was definitely not simple. Han Xiao decided to ask the Dark Net to help pay attention to them. After receiving the mission requirements, Han Xiao left the safe house. How is it? Is he trustworthy? Vernina asked. Hannes shook his head and then nodded. We don't know much about him. Let's see what he'll do first. The information I gave him is mixed, Jirian said. It's only 1/10 of the clues I have. It'll be best if he can complete it. If he has any other thoughts, we have nothing to lose. It's just some unverified information anyway. Chapter 193. This hidden main storyline seems to be related to unearthing history. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have much of an effect, but since it's a main storyline, will I be able to unearth some shocking secret? Han Xiao thought to himself as he walked on the streets. No matter what the secret was, it was his mission now, and he had plenty of opportunities to explore it. Of course, the most important thing was the reward. The mission in Maple had been completed, so Han Xiao left on the same day. Threatening the officials in Maple had led to a secret manhunt by the intelligence agencies in the entire city. Since he had killed an official with a miraculous assassination technique, the manhunt was very intense. Since they were from the same organization, Han Xiao left together with Golden Fox. Ghost Blade was reluctant at first, but the situation was dire, so he had no choice but to compromise. However, Ghost Blade did not like the feeling of being protected by others. His mood became even more gloomy, and he gave off an oppressive aura. After successfully leaving Maple, Han Xiao bade farewell to the 2 hesitant people and rushed to Fabian's transport plane without stopping. The players in the Western Continent's novice village were all waiting for him to show up. They could not wait to receive his favor, or rather, his presence. The forums were in an uproar. The players who were waiting for Han Xiao were worried that Han Xiao would not come. They were all superstitious and started posting comments on the forums to pray for Han Xiao's arrival. There were even 300,000 comments. Han Xiao was worried that he would be drowned by the sea of people. It was really scary. There were also players who were bored and started a joke. Young man, did you drop this black phantom, this white phantom, or this yellow phantom? You're an honest child. To reward you, pay up and learn skill. Look, what did I find? There's a lone black phantom here. We could try to catch it. A black phantom can provide us with energy for a few days, but it's not easy to deal with. We have to approach it slowly from behind. Don't make any noise. I've been discovered. Help, it wants to eat me. Kevin, run. Black Phantom used Death Stare on you. The effect is outstanding. Finally, the Han technician arrived at the 3rd novice village in the Western Continent. There were a sea of players waiting for Han Xiao's arrival, more than any other novice village. As soon as he appeared, players swarmed over like an avalanche. If one didn't know better, they would have thought that it was a plague of locusts. Han Xiao looked at the level of the players. The average level was already LV10. On the level ranking on the forums, the highest level was already LV18. There were hundreds of people at the same level, and Maple Moon was one of them. With the help of the great mechanic Han, she was the biggest winner of the prize pool mission. However, the other players also had their own opportunities. There were many people of the same level, but most of them were foreign players from other novice planets. Blue Star was the default home of the esports clubs in China. However, they had the least number of players at the top of the level ranking board. Han Xiao was very upset about this. You guys are disappointing. Give me some strength. However, he glanced at the sea of people in front of him, thought about it, and said righteously, "What's the use of leveling up fast? Being able to fight is the most important thing." Yes, there was nothing wrong with that. Other than the players from the big guilds who specialized in leveling up the level ranking board, no one would do that. Leveling up fast at the beginning would get slower and slower as time went on. Han Xiao had the EXP limit for issuing missions. If he wanted to train a player, he could make that player grow faster than everyone else. However, he wouldn't do that, at least not before the players reached LV20. Before LV20, energy training method was the most popular, and this was a huge profit. As usual, he taught skills, and players swarmed over. Staying in a novice village to harvest EXP was also a form of relaxation for Han Xiao. He had time to browse the forums. On the forums, the popularity of the inhuman phenomenon was through the roof. Not only on Blue Star, but also on other planets. The players were treated differently. On the magic planet, they were studied by the wizards, and they were discovered to have excellent magic talent. Learning ability on the player panel. They were actually able to join various magic academies. On the ancient planet, they were considered to be messengers sent by the gods and were worshipped. On Winterfrost planet, Winterfrost planet, the players were the safest. The demon race was not interested in their revival ability at all. When they saw the Void Demon Race's battleships traveling in the universe and using gravity traps to capture the asteroid belts around the planet to collect resources, everyone felt that the reaction of the demon race was normal. The strength of the players was like a pile of ants to the extinguished army. Who would care about what an ant looked like? Of course, it was also possible that the demon race was used to the revival ability. No one could be sure. After all, it was all guesswork. The planets mentioned above were all very lucky, but Blue Star was one of the unluckiest planets. The NPCs were very afraid of the players, and the players were captured, studied, sliced, and brainwashed. This treatment was exactly the same as the old slaves in Africa. It was inevitable that there would be complaints. Based on this and the situation of Blue Star, the players of Blue Star had a new guess. Black Phantom was probably the game company's compensation to them. So that's why the other planets don't have people like Black Phantom. Only we do. Luckily, we have Black Phantom. Otherwise, we would be dead meat. Seeing such comments, Han Xiao smiled. His efforts were not in vain. Looking at the eyes of the players, his smile became even brighter. His expression was like an old farmer looking at his harvest. Blue Star's inhuman phenomenon had reached a critical moment. All the major forces were contacting the players. Among them were the gentle ones like Stardragon and Hesla, the cold-blooded ones like Raylan and Ordina, and the other warlords of financial groups were also taking action. This was not without convenience. At least the players did not have to run around and had the opportunity to join a faction. This was indeed what the players did. Most of the players joined the Six Nations. In Han Zhao's previous life, most of the players joined the Germinal Organization. Now that the Germinal Organization's bases were all destroyed, they could only stay in the main camp and capture the local players. It was miserable. Their numbers were 70 to 80% less than in Han Zhao's previous life. The inhuman phenomenon also caused another change. The players became interested in teasing the NPCs and became curious babies who liked to ask questions. They also liked to do some outrageous things to see the NPCs' reactions. The players were having fun, but in the eyes of the NPCs, their actions were extremely strange. All the major forces wrote this slogan in the Inhuman profile. Inhumans are generally mentally ill. Their behavior is unpredictable. They can do anything. You can't understand them with normal thinking. Han Xiao saw the slogans of these forces on the darknet and did not know whether to laugh or cry. There was another slogan that made him almost cramp up. After testing, Inhumans have genders, but they do not have genitals and reproductive abilities. The game did not allow players to strip naked. In the eyes of the NPCs, it was like their underwear had become a part of their body. This made them very confused. How could there be people who looked like that? Han Xiao almost laughed himself crazy. He could already imagine how the various large organizations had discovered this, unable to reproduce, so the Inhumans could be ruled out as a new race. Of course, it could also be that the reproduction method was completely different from what Blue Star knew. There were also all kinds of speculations about the appearance of the Inhumans on the darknet. Han Xiao realized that the long-abandoned religion seemed to be on the rise again. It said that the Inhumans were the messengers sent by God to save the world. Religion and superstition were always full of holes and could be linked to any phenomenon. Some players had the idea of teasing Black Phantom. Since Black Phantom was a new guide, would he be like the other NPCs and have a strange reaction? Teasing NPCs was a very fun thing to do. Black Phantom, your name is Han Xiao. You used to serve in Star Dragon and are now a member of the Darknet. Am I right? A player with the ID Flying Mantis Prawn suddenly said. He had seen the video of Bun Hit Dog beating up Bun Hit Dog, and he had an idea. He wanted to see what would happen if he exposed Bun Hit Dog's identity in front of Black Phantom. Black Phantom would not know that his identity was exposed. When he saw a stranger expose his identity, would Black Phantom lose his composure and be shocked? Chapter 194. The onlookers all looked at Flying Mantis Prawn with admiration. This was a true warrior who dared to face death head-on. Then, they all stepped back and stood further away, afraid that they would be splashed with blood. Han Xiao was very clear about the source of Flying Mantis Prawn's information. This was the influence of Bun Hit Dog's video. Leaking some information to arouse the curiosity of the players about his mysterious identity and increase his fame was something that he had tacitly allowed. The leaked information was not important to Han Xiao. Players were not NPCs. They did not have a huge information network and did not have key information. Knowing his real name was useless. On the contrary, the more the video spread, the more his influence would increase. Therefore, Han Xiao had already guessed that there would be players who would ask him directly. He just nodded calmly and did not say anything else. Flying Mantis Prawn was stunned. This was completely different from what he had imagined. How could Black Phantom be so calm when his identity was exposed? Did Black Phantom not care at all about strangers knowing his identity? Or, in a place that the players did not know, Black Phantom's identity was no longer a secret? Therefore, this method was useless. Flying Mantis Prawn was frustrated. Black Phantom was too stable. He did not feel like he had any weaknesses. The onlookers looked at each other and became even more curious. What kind of person was he? Flying Mantis Prawn did not give up. He asked again, I want to join the Germinal organization. Do you know how to do that? Everyone knew that Black Phantom was the enemy of the Germinal organization. He asked this on purpose. Hey, young man, are you provoking me? Han Xiao did not say anything and directly reduced his favorability by 3 points as a punishment. Flying Mantis Prawn's face turned green. This reaction was too direct. There was no warning at all. Han Xiao suddenly had a new idea. Since he had a certain amount of influence among the players, maybe he could guide them in choosing a faction. Therefore, he paused and said, the war is about to break out. The Germinal organization will definitely lose. If you want to commit suicide, it's up to you. If you want to join the Darknet, I can write a letter of recommendation. If you want to join the Germinal organization, get lost. Everyone was excited. Black Phantom finally had a different reaction. He even said something that they did not know. They whispered among themselves. Expedition? The Six Nations and the Germinal organization are going to war? He definitely knows more than we do. His judgment is definitely reliable. Then, Joining the Germinal organization is a huge loss. The players were in an uproar. Only the people from the Andrea continent had joined the Germinal organization. Han Zhao's words would soon be posted on the forum, and those who wanted to join the Germinal organization would give up on that idea. He would not let go of any opportunity to attack the Germinal organization. He had not been stirring up trouble recently, and the Germinal organization seemed to have been living peacefully for a while. He could not tolerate it at all. The player noticed another important point. He mentioned the dark net. That's a hidden force, right? Can you let us join the dark net? Han Xiao smiled. He opened the shop page that he hadn't seen in a long time and added a new item. Faction Recommendation Letter. You can use this item to open the Blood Pact Society faction. Note, the Blood Pact Society is an assassin organization under the Darknet. Price, 250,000 aquamarine dollars, 250,000. Everyone was dumbfounded. To them, this was a sky-high price. No one could afford it. Originally, joining the Blood Pact Society required one to undergo a series of missions and tests. However, Han Xiao had cut them off. With his relationship with the Darknet, it was only a matter of words for him to introduce some players to join. A few months ago, Han Xiao had bought the Blood Pact Society certificate from Antonio for 200,000 aquamarine dollars. He had increased the price by 25% based on that. After all, it was inflation. He felt that it was a reasonable price increase. With such a high price, normal players would naturally be dissuaded. Han Zhao's original intention was not to sell it on a large scale. His target customers were the professional players from the clubs. Only with the financial support of the big guilds could they afford such a price. Professional players were the type of players who were most willing to use any means to become stronger. This plan could attract professional players and help him expand his backup team. Of course, the main reason was to make money. It's not enough to just have cheap skills and normal goods. I also need luxury goods with sky-high prices to enrich my product structure, Han Xiaoxin said. 250,000 aquamarine dollars was a sum that most guilds could not afford. However, they were rich and could buy other players' aquamarine dollars through real-life currency. Let's see how many guilds can wake up to the benefits of joining a new hidden faction. He was now Taigong Han's bait. Those who were willing to take the bait. Unbelievable, the most expensive item so far. Black Phantom. Germinal organization will lose. Posts with such titles appeared on the Blue Star forum and immediately attracted the attention of the players. Seeing the sky-high price of 250,000 aquamarine dollars, they were all stunned. Wow, is this faction gold-plated like Blood Pact Society? I wonder what it does. The price is ridiculously high. What's so special about this faction called Blood Pact Society? Have you heard of this faction before? This person was just asking casually and did not expect someone to really reply. I triggered the Blood Pact Society's joining mission. It's very complicated and difficult. It's introduced as an assassin organization. Currently, I don't know what benefits it has, but to me, spending 250,000 just to skip the prerequisite mission is not worth it. The sky-high price of 250,000 aquamarine dollars caused a lot of discussion. The average wealth of players now was around 3,000 to 5,000 aquamarine dollars. It was not too difficult for guilds to gather 250,000 aquamarine dollars. After all, the number of players was constantly increasing. However, most guilds felt that it was not worth it. 250,000 aquamarine dollars for an aquamarine dollar letter was too extravagant. The situation was not clear yet, so they decided to wait and see. Han Xiao had influence among the normal players, but the guilds had always been rational and considered everything from the perspective of profit. Other players were playing games, but they were doing business. Compared to the sky-high price of the aquamarine dollar letter, the players paid more attention to Han Zhao's news that the Six Nations and the Germinal organization were about to start a war. After playing for a few days, the Blue Star players all knew that the conflict between the Six Nations and the Germinal organization was the main storyline. However, the war had started without warning, and it was an expedition, which meant that the battlefield would be in the Andrea continent. Many players had not even chosen a faction, and their strength was not enough to participate in the main storyline mission. In the original storyline, the war was supposed to start a few months later, and there would be local battles in every continent. Players from all over the world could participate. However, after Han Zhao's intervention, the war was not only brought forward, but it was also an expedition from the start. He felt that the impact that the players could cause was minimized. Most importantly, most players had not triggered the main storyline mission between the Six Nations and the Germinal Organization yet. Black Fandom said that the Germinal Organization would definitely lose, which made many people stop. Players liked excitement, and there were many who leaned toward the evil faction. There were also many who wanted to join the Germinal Organization. However, this time, Han Zhao's influence played a role. These players started to waver. If they chose the Germinal Organization, they would have to bear the risk of being destroyed. If that was the case, they would rather choose the lawful faction of the Six Nations. Only the embrace of the strong would be warm. One sentence made the Germinal Organization lose many potential supporters. Han Zhao's influence on the players grew as he built his own image, and his position in the hearts of the players was strengthened. His words would be treated as key information in the game by the players. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.